Hello and welcome back to the 100th episode of MLM Horror Stories. I started this series almost 3 years ago, and it all began because people were just willingly sending stories to my inbox. They're like, hey Hannah, I see that you're talking about MLMs on your channel. I just want to tell you about something crazy that happened to me one time. Not even necessarily asking to be featured in a video, not even really asking for me to respond. They're just saying, I need to get this off my chest. I need to tell somebody about what happened to me. And from there I got the idea, what if we could feature these people's experience? What if I could read them for a video? What if I could share my input on them? And what if these videos could be shared to other people who probably likely are in the same boat, who can relate to these experiences? When you join an MLM company, you are put on a team. You do have a group of people that you're now associated with, but it's still a very isolating experience. And it's easy to feel like I'm the only one that these bad things are happening to. I'm the only one struggling in my company. Why am I having such a hard time when I'm seeing all of these people above me supposedly succeeding? This should be such an easy way for me to make money. That's how it was pitched to me. But here I am, I'm working super hard and it's just not working out. It must be a me problem. And from there, the MLM Horror Stories series on my channel was born. I created the first video and I called out for more stories, and now I've transitioned to having an MLM Horror Stories only inbox where all the stories get filtered into. There are hundreds and hundreds of stories in there. And for about a year now, my editor, Elise, has been doing a fantastic job of going through that inbox and screening the stories for me. She'll sort them into different folders that makes it easier for me to find what I'm looking for when I'm sitting down to prepare a horror stories video. So in honor of the 100th episode today, what I did is I went into that inbox and I went to the folder where the best of the best stories get sorted into. And coincidentally, there happened to be about 100 different horror stories sitting in there. So what I did is I spent many hours this week reading through those 100 stories and painstakingly choosing the top 10 stories that made my jaw drop. I've been at this for 3 years. I have 99 other episodes in this series on my channel. I have read hundreds of horror stories. And by this point, I feel like it's kind of hard to shock me. There are days where I feel like I have heard it all by this point, but this video right here shows you that I absolutely have not. When I was reading through these stories, my criteria were, if my jaw dropped, if I audibly gasped, if it was a story with twists and turns that I never could have predicted myself, or if it was written from a really unique perspective that I've never heard before. Those are the top 10 stories that got selected for this video today. It was on episode 98, I believe, that I asked for feedback on what we should do for the 100th episode. And I tossed out the idea of recapping like the top 10 stories from my channel of all time or something like that. But overwhelmingly, the response I got in the comments was, no, we want new stories. And specifically an extra long, extra special episode full of those new stories. And so I did my very best to bring you the best. But I could not have done that without the help of my editor, Elise, who has put in countless hours of screening and sorting stories in that inbox for me. Thank you, Elise. Don't cut this out. Thank you, thank you. And I could not have done it without those of you who have been so courageous and so vulnerable and willing to bear it all and put it all out on the line to share your stories with me. Thank you for entrusting me with these really deep experiences. This is going to be such a good video. I'm thrilled for it, and I have 10 phenomenal stories coming your way. But first, of course, a moment for today's sponsor, the Paired app. Paired is a relationship care app designed to strengthen your communication and deepen your emotional connection through their daily questions, quizzes, and games that you complete with your partner. I always say that my favorite feature of the app is that each partner answers the questions independently of one another, and you can only see your partner's responses once you have submitted your own. We completed a question recently that asked, what's one of your favorite qualities that you think your partner loves about you? And he said, I think that Hannah loves that I'm calm and that I'm level-headed and that we kind of balance each other out. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I would have said too. He is the perfect compliment to me. His calm energy keeps me sane. And so it was really cool for him to pinpoint that and be like, I think Hannah appreciates that about me. And I'm like, yes, you're right. I absolutely do. That communicates to me that I've done a good job telling him that I appreciate that about him. And he knows that. By this point, I know that you have heard me sing the praises of the Paired app. I've been using it for almost 4 years now, and it's something that I truly feel like every couple in any stage of their relationship could benefit from. But one of the aspects about the Paired app that I don't talk about enough, admittedly, is that it is backed by expert research and advice. They have a team of relationship therapists, psychologists, authors, professors. One of these experts is Dr. Pepper Schwartz, and I actually knew exactly who she was when I saw her picture because she teaches a class at my alma mater, and I had friends that took that class from her. And she worked on the Lifetime show Married at First Sight, so you might recognize her from there as well. I definitely binge watched that show many years ago. So it was pretty cool to be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that expert before. I'm familiar with her credentials. There's a section of the app that lists out all of the experts, and you can click on their profiles to read their professional bios and to also see any expert tips and advice that they have to offer. So for Dr. Schwartz, one of the tips that she gives is regarding compliments. She said that she conducted a national study that revealed that couples who give and receive compliments on a regular basis are happier than couples who don't. And it might seem like a trivial thing to do to compliment your partner, but it's one of those really small things that has big impacts on the health and happiness of your relationship. The Paired app offers so much value to all relationships in any stage, and to give it a try for yourself, you can head to my link in the description box below. That's going to give you a 7-day free trial plus 25% off Paired Premium for you and your partner. Thanks again, Paired, for your support of the channel. Now let's get into these top 10 stories today. This first story says, first of all, hi from overseas. I'm a French subscriber, so pardon my English. And I must say that I absolutely love your content. I've been binge watching it so much and it really helps me fall asleep, not gonna lie. I get that feedback a lot, funny enough. Keep up the amazing work, and I also love your new series on influencer madness. I must say that as a non-American, it is really interesting to see what goes on over there because it is, well, far away from my reality. Just for my own safety, I would like to stay anonymous, and I won't name the MLM brand nor mention what kind of products they sell to avoid any legal conflict. You'll understand why in the next paragraph. I think I may have quite an interesting take on your MLM horror stories, as I worked as a statistician for a market research agency that was mandated by an MLM to convey a study on their sales reps. I'm gonna be honest, before subscribing to your channel, I was not that familiar with MLM. I do feel it is way less common in France. The only one I've ever heard of here is Tupperware. However, I was conscious of the business model and why it isn't viable due to my university background. Back to the project. Our market research agency specialized in quantitative surveys and qualitative interviews, and we did a lot of satisfaction studies amongst companies. So when they contacted us, it felt like a very basic project, so we accepted it. After multiple calls with the director and the sales rep coordinator, I don't remember their exact job title, we ended up understanding that it was an MLM model, but it was too late to back off as we signed a contract with them. Anyways, the key points for them were to understand, why are our sales going down? Why is it difficult for our reps to recruit new girls? And what could we do to improve and strengthen the relationship between the girls and the company? And I think the use of the word girls is really interesting here because it is very, very true. Most people that get involved with MLM companies are women. It's a very female dominated industry. So I did my job and ended up interviewing about 50 sales reps individually from this company. And now it gets interesting. Sorry for the long introduction. Essentially, what the coordinator did at first was send me the info of some of their girls. After some interviews were done, I quickly understood that I was given the contacts of the top of the pyramid. All of these MLM Huns were absolutely brainwashed by the company. It was actually insane to see how well they talked about the company. In fact, in many qualitative studies I did, and just from basic life experience, I have never ever heard anyone talk so highly of an employer. They all said that this company changed their life and gave them a purpose and financial freedom. And no shade to those women, I'm glad that it worked out for them. Everyone deserves to live a good life, and of course I'm sure it's easy to have financial freedom when you're at the top of the pyramid. However, when I started digging a bit more and asked the coordinator for the contact info of the girls that are maybe in the downline of those I already interviewed, or girls who recently joined the company, it started to feel a bit weird. The coordinator was really hesitant in giving me access to these girls, but I played my cards right. I told him that for such a study, it wouldn't be interesting for them to hear about the experience of just those who are doing well. I eventually ended up interviewing both new recruits or girls who were struggling. I quickly noticed some weird patterns across all types of profiles: the top of the pyramid, the newcomers, and the strugglers. The first one was that they all said that their revenues were decreasing over the years, but that it's because they had to work harder, which sounds absolutely insane to me. The second one was that the company was no longer making them feel important by throwing big events and galas and so on. So you love an employer who doesn't make you feel important? Interesting. The third one, mainly coming from the girls who were struggling or that recently joined, was that they felt like their working hours did not feel rewarded. Duh. A lot of them told me that the only thing they were paid for were sales or recruitment. However, the long hours they spent on customer service or social media and content creation were not rewarded. Finally, there was, in the way they opened up to me, a massive cognitive dissonance in their discourse. They kept telling me how it wasn't easy to sell and recruit, how sometimes it felt overwhelming to hear the success stories of others when you were personally struggling, or that it could be expensive to keep your business running. Yet, they were all giving super high ratings to the company. In my interview guide, towards the end of the interview, I would ask them to rate their experience with the company and ended up having an average rating of 8.5 out of 10. You're completely on the money with the cognitive dissonance. How can you sit here and say that you're really struggling, you're not making that much money, your income is declining, you don't feel supported by this company, yet you're saying, oh, no, actually, really love the company, great company, 8.5 out of 10. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I feel like this is their way of justifying to themselves that it's not the company that it's a problem, it's me that's the problem. I need to work harder, I need to do more. There's a formula for success here, and I just haven't figured it out quite yet, but I will one day, don't worry. And that's really, really sad, because I wish that these individual people could understand that it's not an issue with them in the slightest. The business model has set them up to fail. This final result was so striking to me because personally, if I had more expenses than income, that the vast majority of my job wasn't compensated, and that I felt like I was constantly falling behind, I would leave the company and not praise it. Completely. That's the logical, rational thing to do, but that's not the way it works in MLMs because of the mind control that these people are under. The brainwashing, for lack of a better term, that their failures or their success are solely dependent on them and their effort. And it's just not true. That's not the way this works at all. To finish my story, I'm going to give you a short overview of the final presentation we gave to the MLM company's boss and executives. Essentially, what we said to them was that they had girls who would take a bullet for this company, that most of these women had a willpower that I rarely saw, and all they wanted was to feel appreciated. We tried to explain to them that there was an increasing frustration due to content creation not being rewarded, and that it was just a way for them to survive and reach out to new customers. That's right, let's touch on that really quick, because when you join an MLM, most of the work you're doing is unpaid. You're volunteering your time to promote this company for free, essentially. And I've made this point in so many other videos that you could spend a 40-hour work week making posts, promoting this company, singing their praises, creating content, reels, Instagram stories, whatever. Here's the product, here's how it works, here's why it's great, here's why you should buy it, cold messaging people, following up with those people. And at the end of that 40-hour work week, you want to know what could happen? Nothing. All of that work could have been completely wasted, because you only make money if you are successful in selling that product or successful in recruiting somebody, but you can't force people to do either of those things. And so it sounds like what these members of this MLM are really frustrated by is they're like, I'm spending so much time promoting these products for nothing. It's not resulting in sales. It's not resulting in recruits. I'm wasting my time here. And it's really frustrating because I was under the impression that when I joined this company, it was going to be pretty easy money. I could do it on the side in the pockets of time, and people would just be flocking to me to buy my product, and I'd be making so much commission that I could like quit my full-time job maybe, or I could make $1 million, or whatever delusion they have told themselves about this opportunity. So it sounds like what you're trying to explain to these higher ups in this MLM company is like, look, your independent contractors don't feel very valued because most of the time they're spending promoting your company is unpaid. And then back to your story, you said that their answer after a results presentation of about 1 hour was something along the lines of, yes, they're salespeople, not our communication team, so how would we reward them for content creation? I was absolutely gagged by the lack of respect that they had for these poor girls. When mentioning the decline in sales due to the difficulty to recruit and that the product they sell is not something you could replace every month, the executive's answer was, we need to re-motivate the girls by throwing a new event. It was insane to me that their girls were complaining of a decreased income and increased pressure, and their only answer was, we need to throw some sparkles in their face and all will be well. With this project, I felt that I truly witnessed firsthand all the things that are wrong with MLM, and it was truly an eye-opening experience. I deeply regret that I had to work on such a project because I clearly couldn't tell all that I had regarding the business model to the CEO, as it wasn't my job and I wasn't about to jeopardize it. I don't know if it truly falls under the scope of horror story. I think so, absolutely. Once again, sorry if my story is a bit difficult to read or doesn't sound very fluid, as I'm not a native English speaker. I've proofread it, but it's likely that I've missed many weird phrasing and spelling mistakes. Have a lovely rest of your day and keep up the amazing work. Lots of love from the City of Love, Paris. I completely think that this classifies as a horror story, especially because of your really unique experience and your perspective. This is the first time I think that I've heard of somebody in your position. You're a statistician for a market research agency, and you're like, look, I did a deep dive into this MLM company and the culture and how the women are feeling within that company, and everything you reported is what we already suspected happens. Low morale, decreasing incomes, everybody taking ownership over their failures, thinking that it's their own fault that things aren't working out for them. And for that reason, this is a really important story to share, because guaranteed there are people in their MLMs right now feeling this way behind the scenes, but they're shoving it down, they're not paying attention to it, they're putting on a brave face for social media and for their friends and family, pretending that everything is fine and going super well, but they're struggling underneath it all, and they don't know how to reconcile that feeling. And so to hear your perspective of you looking into this company company and having, what did you say, 50 different people that you interviewed, and they're all kind of saying the same thing, that leads me to conclude that most people in these companies are also feeling similarly, but they're either not ready to admit it to themselves or to other people around them. And I think the cognitive dissonance piece is the biggest part of all of this. How can you sit there and say you're struggling, but then also not blame the company at all for the fact that you're struggling? It's extremely bizarre that people who are in a company or working for a company that doesn't treat them very well still feel compelled to sing that company's praises, to rate them highly, to have nice things to say about them. If this was like a W-2 employee situation versus an independent contractor situation, and this kind of dynamic was going down in your professional workplace, you wouldn't put up with that. You wouldn't tolerate it. If you're not making any money, you're super stressed out and you hate your boss, like, you're gonna leave. Maybe that's simplifying it too much. I know that it's more complex and nuanced than that, but generally speaking, people who are feeling undervalued in their workplace don't also make an effort to make that workplace look good. This is a dynamic that we really only see in the MLM structure. I loved this story so much. Thank you for writing in your exceptionally unique perspective. I think it's very valuable, and I think a lot of the viewers listening to that story can feel really validated in their own experiences within their MLMs. Story number 2 says, "Hi Hannah, here's my story about how my psychiatrist signed me up for his MLM downline." Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, I'm so sick of medical professionals abusing their power and signing people up for MLMs without their consent. Okay, here we go. This story is a bit complicated, so buckle in. When I was around 14 years old, I started getting sick. I had muscle pain, insomnia, stomach issues, painful periods, became severely underweight, and sometimes struggled to even get out of bed. My doctors ran all the possible tests they could think of, and I was simply told that I had chronic fatigue. I tried different diets, medications, and supplements, and nothing seemed to work. I eventually accepted this was how things were going to be, and I was tired of seeing so many doctors. I started seeing a therapist, and she eventually recommended I see a psychiatrist, as she felt it might be time to consider medication and further treatment for my anxiety and depression. I saw the psychiatrist that she recommended. We'll call him Dr. W. And after my initial psychological evaluation, he explained that he would like to rule out biological factors before prescribing any medication. He told me that he believes medications are necessary in many cases, but likes to review overall health before prescribing them. Great, love to hear that. Dr. W ran many tests, including hormone and genetic testing, which revealed several issues. My main problem was that I had an MTHFR genetic mutation. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know if you spell it out. I'm just going to because I'm not sure. I won't get into the full science behind this condition, but essentially MTHFR is a gene that helps your body process folate, an essential nutrient that helps optimize a huge number of processes in your body, including the production of DNA, the metabolism of hormones, and proper detoxification. Due to my genetic condition, my body is unable to process folate, resulting in my wide range of health conditions from depression to IBS. Luckily, there is a relatively easy fix for my condition: methylated folate supplementation, which provides my body with a form of folate that I can actually process and use. Dr. W gave me a chat about choosing a high-quality supplement brand that is third-party tested, and he gave me a few brand recommendations and left it at that. He then asked if I was currently taking any multivitamins, which is when he recommended a brand called BodyWise. He suggested that I start on BodyWise's AM and PM multivitamins, vitamin C, and something called AG Immune. I didn't think anything of it, and I agreed to give them a try. Dr. W said that he'd like me to start on my supplements and that we would retest my hormones after 6 months and reevaluate my need for antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. 6 months go by, and let me tell you, my life completely turned around. All of my symptoms were nearly gone, my hormone panel showed healthy and normal levels, and Dr. W ruled out my need for medication. It's now been 2 years since my MTHFR diagnosis, and I'm now a happy and healthy 24-year-old who recently found your YouTube channel. I've been watching your MLM horror story playlist, and after a few days of listening to these stories, I started reevaluating my experience with Dr. W. Red flag number 1. After my diagnostic appointment with Dr. W, I was ushered over to the receptionist to sign up for my BodyWise supplements. She told me that by signing up for an account through their office, I could access discounted prices on my vitamins. I thought this was just something they offered to their patients. Red flag number 2. These vitamins are not cheap. I'm talking $30 to $45 per bottle. That means that I've been spending around $125 on a supply of BodyWise vitamins, which would last me around 2 months. I'm very thankful that my parents have been covering my medical costs while I've been in school, and they were willing to pay whatever was necessary for me to feel healthy again. Just for reference, the medically necessary folate supplements that I take cost about $12 a bottle, and they can be purchased at Walgreens. No complex sign-up process or online portal necessary. Red flag number 3. My BodyWise supplements would auto ship in very short intervals. I ended up with more vitamins than I I needed, and I had to keep delaying my shipments. There was no way to pause or cancel my auto ship without calling customer support. I also noticed that BodyWise vitamins have a short shelf life. They often expired within 2 to 3 months of them being shipped to me. In contrast, my folate supplements from Walgreens are currently good until the year 2027. That is a really big red flag, actually, and something that I don't feel like comes up very much in these videos, so let's take a moment to pause on that. Great observation that these things are being shipped to you way faster than you can use them, and they're expiring way faster than you can use them. If they're arriving to you and they only have like a 2 to 3 month shelf life past that point, that kind of tells me that maybe they were sitting on a shelf in a warehouse for a long time. Completely agree with you that when you buy supplements from a place like Walgreens or whatever, they are typically good for a couple years at least. Likely because there is a high turnover rate of these supplements on those store shelves that there might not be in the case of an MLM company, where they've got these pills that are really expensive and there's probably not a high demand for them and they're kind of just sitting for a buyer. I feel like the expiration dates give us some kind of clue about maybe like the supply and demand of this type of a product. After evaluating all these red flags, I needed to do some digging. I quickly logged into my BodyWise account and I found my profile page. I clicked on it, and what do you know? I'm listed as a BodyWise consultant with Dr. W as my direct upline. I felt sick. I did a quick Google search about BodyWise and confirmed that they are indeed an MLM company. They were even involved in a $3.5 million lawsuit over false claims about their AG Immune supplement, which I had been taking for 2 years at the recommendation of Dr. W. Everything started to make sense. The lengthy registration process, the pushy auto ship program, the crazy expensive price. I can also assume that the short shelf life of the supplements is due to them sitting in a warehouse somewhere for the last few years. Okay. We're on the same page. You said it. I should have just read ahead. They're likely sitting in a warehouse somewhere for the last few years before actually being shipped out to me. I wanted more details on my time with Dr. W, and I turned to my email inbox in search of records. First, I found several old emails from BodyWise. The first one was a welcome email that thanked me for my order and also described how I now have the opportunity to build a successful business. If I had any questions or needed any support with my business, I could contact my direct upline sponsor, Dr. W. And the email also included a phone number I could call to hear real-life success stories of BodyWise consultants. Isn't that just amazing how now, in the future, looking at these things in retrospect, you have the context now to make sense of this kind of an email? I'm sure at the time it popped up in your inbox and you're like, oh yeah, I did place an order for those supplements. Here's the email kind of confirming my purchase or whatever, as many brands do when you make a purchase. And you probably didn't think that much of it. Why would you, right? But here you are 2 years removed from the situation. You've learned about MLMs. You know that this is something you should watch out for. And you look at that email again and you're like, oh my gosh, it was right there. The evidence was right there in front of me. And it told me that I was a downline member of my psychiatrist. Like, how did I not pick up on that, right? But you don't know what you don't know. You're not sure what to look for. You don't even notice that there's something here that you should be looking for. All you thought at the time was that your psychiatrist recommended something that was going to help you and you took it. You don't automatically assume that the psychiatrist who is intending to help you has like these nefarious intentions, right? So I'm sure that was a wild experience to find that in your inbox and have all of these light bulb moments at once. The next cringy email from BodyWise was titled, "Tonight, Financial Prosperity Can Be Yours," which was a Zoom seminar about financial freedom with the BodyWise CEO. Barf! Lastly, I found a BodyWise email talking about their new scientific advisory board, which included Dr. W himself. Looks like BodyWise needed to try and legitimize their business and made Dr. W their poster child. I felt so gross that my psychiatrist had been profiting off of me and countless other patients. This feels so unethical, but after looking at my new patient paperwork from Dr. W, I actually signed a disclosure statement about BodyWise, which I have included below. The language is vague at best. Yes, okay, let's take a look at this because again, I'm sure you're looking at this through a completely new lens now. So this is the release form that you had to sign as a patient of the psychiatrist. I'm going to put it on the screen if you'd like to pause and read it. I'm just going to kind of summarize. It basically says that supplements are subject to a different set of standards than pharmaceutical grade medications are. And it says, for this reason, we have chosen to offer supplements that maintain an impeccable reputation. And they say that BodyWise products have the rare distinction of being manufactured under an FDA pharmaceutical manufacturing license. This is the same license required to manufacture prescription medication. So in order to offer these BodyWise products from these quality manufacturers, we are required to maintain an affiliation with them. This means that we receive a rebate, quote unquote, they call it, after you make a purchase from BodyWise. The last paragraph says, as untraditional as this may seem, it does represent the norm within an integrative practice attempting to provide provide the best benefit from the highest quality. This information is being provided to you in order to make clear to our patients that a necessary financial interest exists and that you are under no obligation to accept our recommendations regarding these products. This feels like gaslighting. I gotta be so honest. They're framing this situation in such a way where they're like, we really just want our patients to have the best, and we believe that BodyWise is the best, but in order for us to offer you the best of the best, unfortunately, we have to maintain this affiliation with them, and we do get some kind of kickback, but it's okay. That's just the way things work around here. They say that this results in, quote, a profit-bearing situation for the practice, but it's okay. Nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. If you want the best products for your health conditions that you came to us seeking help for, you're just gonna have to sign this release, okay? Don't ask any questions. It's kind of how it feels. And in preparation for this video, I was also searching BodyWise, and I also came across that lawsuit that you talked about in your story, but I also found another public notice posted on the FTC website from 1995, and it says that BodyWise International has agreed to settle Federal Trade Commission charges that it made deceptive weight loss and cholesterol reduction claims for its nutritional supplements. The FTC also charged BodyWise with failing to disclose that healthcare professionals who gave testimonials for the products also were product distributors and therefore had a financial interest in promoting them. This settlement would, quote, require clear disclosures of any financial connection between the endorsers and BodyWise or its products. So way back in 1995, they had a settlement that said, look, if you're a healthcare professional and you're selling these BodyWise products, you need to make that clear to your patients explicitly. And thus, this disclosure was born. But it's my opinion that they were extremely vague and shady and deceptive about the way they positioned this disclosure. Because this psychiatrist's office did make it clear that there is a financial connection and that it's just a rebate that we happen to get when you buy the products from our office. They want you to know that they do get paid for this, but they're not making it clear that this is a multi-level marketing company that they're affiliated with and that they are members of it and that they are earning a commission on it. A direct personal commission right into Dr. W's pocket. It's of my opinion that they are completely downplaying and almost covering up what's really going on. They're making it seem like they have the access to these really special products, and in order to offer them to you, they need to like maintain an affiliation with the company and they get a rebate when you buy it. Cut the shit. You joined an MLM company and you're taking advantage of your patients and you're making money off of the purchases that they make. And not just that, because they're not just customers in this whole situation. No, you signed them up for your downline. You made them representatives in this company too. Where was the language about that in the disclosure? Where did you tell patients that, oh, they're actually getting signed up for an MLM company when you buy these products? Didn't read anything about that in there. It's deceptive, it's unethical, and it's a complete abuse of power in the medical system. How dare you? I can feel myself getting very fired up about this, so let's take a breather. Let's continue on with your story. I feel so conflicted and violated about this whole situation, as you should. I found so much healing from my diagnosis and finally feel like my life is on track, but at the same time, the doctor who brought about this healing also took advantage of my vulnerability by signing me up for his downline and selling me overpriced MLM vitamins. I've spent the day feeling really stupid about the whole situation, but I'm trying my best to give myself some grace. I was a chronically ill 21-year-old desperate to be healthy again. I honestly don't think I ever even read any of those cringy emails, or maybe I just didn't know any better. I've since canceled my BodyWise account and hope my story can be a lesson for others out there to do their research before purchasing products from medical professionals. You really can't trust anyone these days. I've never heard of BodyWise discussed in the anti-MLM community, so this is a little PSA for everyone out there to be careful. For clarification, Dr. W is indeed a board-certified psychiatrist in the US, and my genetic condition was confirmed by my primary care physician along with my medically necessary supplement dosage. Thank you, Hannah, for everything you do. I would not have come to this realization without you. Sending best wishes to you and your family. Give the cats some pets for me. I don't think that BodyWise has made an appearance on my channel until now. To me, it feels like maybe it's one of the lesser known MLMs, I'm not sure, but I am comforted knowing that you have canceled your BodyWise account a couple of years later, and I'm sure that that can feel really scary because you did see positive results from these supplements. They were doing something for you. And this is a good reminder that not all MLM MLM products are bad. They can be good. They can work. People can have a positive experience with them. It's the business model that's an issue. It's the fact that they're very overpriced and that they're hard to get your hands on and that you're on this auto ship program that's like impossible to get out of, and all of the predatory and manipulative tactics that go along with getting people to buy these particular supplements, right? So I know it can feel scary to leave these supplements behind and move forward without them, but I encourage you, look at the ingredients on the back of that bottle. I can pretty much guarantee you can find something extremely similar from a non-MLM company at your local Walgreens. Maybe you can't find an exact match supplement that has all the exact same ingredients in it, but you can mix and match. If there are certain vitamins and minerals that you respond well to, you can buy those separately for much, much, much cheaper than you could get through the BodyWise account, right? So I want to reassure you, like, there is still hope. It's going to be okay. You will find something else that works for you. BodyWise is not the magic pill. It was only presented to you like it was the magic pill because your psychiatrist had a financial interest in making you believe that. And I do want to touch on one other thing from that disclosure document that really rubbed me the wrong way and caught my eye. It said that nutritional supplements are subject to FDA dietary supplement regulations. And to that I went, huh? Because I thought that supplements were not regulated by the FDA. So I went to the FDA website and it says, how are dietary supplements regulated? Where it outlines that under existing law, the FDA does not, in all caps, does not have the authority to approve dietary supplements for safety and effectiveness or to approve their labeling before those supplements are sold to the public. It is the responsibility of dietary supplement companies to ensure their products meet the safety standards. Otherwise, they're in violation of the law. So please correct me if I'm wrong or explain to me if I'm missing something in the comments below. But the way it appears to me here is that the FDA is like, we don't regulate supplements. That's on the brand. Yet your psychiatrist disclosure document is saying that nutritional supplements are regulated by the FDA. And not only that, BodyWise products have the rare distinction of being manufactured under an FDA pharmaceutical manufacturing license. Is that true? I don't really think so, because I go to the BodyWise website and it says that their products are manufactured in FDA licensed facilities using current good manufacturing practices. I feel like, again, the language the disclosure is using is really deceptive. When I read that the first time, I took that to mean that, like, these supplements are regulated by the FDA. They have a pharmaceutical manufacturing license. These are good quality things that have been tested. But then when you go to the BodyWise website, they frame it like, no, the products aren't FDA approved or FDA regulated. It's just that, like, the facility that we produce these pills in, that's an FDA licensed facilities. We're not making these in some random guy's garage, is basically what they're saying. And if you go to any of the product listings on the BodyWise website, there's a box at the bottom that says these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. I really don't like it. I really don't like the way that this makes me feel. I feel like this is very unethical. This is super wrong for him as a medical professional to be doing. And I guess it's a better late than never kind of situation, right? You were taking these supplements for 2 years. You were buying them from an MLM without knowing. But again, you don't know what you don't know. And when you do have that new information, good on you for doing something with it, right? Once you become informed about something or you have more context about the situation, now you have the power to make more informed decisions moving forward. This is one of the more shocking stories I've ever read on my channel. What this psychiatrist is doing is so wrong. Thank you for writing in your story and for bringing light to this situation. This third story says, hi Hannah, I love your name. My 5th child, Hannah, was born in '93. She's a wife and mother of 4 now. I'm actually a mom of 5 married kids and a grandma to 16 littles. I am one blessed woman, to be sure. At 52 years old, having just lost my grandmother and mother within 2 weeks of each other to COVID, I'm so sorry that happened. I was very down and very overweight. Essentially, both of them suffocated to death in my arms. Oh my gosh. Mom was in the hospital and grandma was in hospice at the house with me. COVID pushed her into dementia, and at 93, her body shut down. My dad barely survived. All 3 of them lived in one home, so I was extremely busy and overwhelmed with getting him healthy, getting their home cleared out, selling or passing on to family everything from their 53-year marriage. It took an extensive amount of work. Dad eventually decided he wanted to bless me for all of the hard work and do something to help me with my weight. He knew that this was really getting me down. Just an FYI here, I was married 25 years, divorced 13 years ago, and have been on my own since. Just me and Jesus Jesus and my kids and grands. They're my world. Back to Dad. He had a friend that introduced him to Optavia, and he went ahead and he bought me 6 months worth of boxes. I was in shock, and I started reading about it on Facebook. I just saw all of this success and dreamed of this working for me after all of this time of struggling. I should have done more research on my own. So just for anybody not familiar with Optavia, because it is one of the lesser known talked about MLMs on my channel, this is a food plan MLM. I don't even really know how else to classify it. It's a weight loss program in which you buy a system or a bundle of products that they ship to your house, and that is pretty much all you consume for however long you decide to do the program. And the kicker is all of the food, it's not food at all. They call it fuelings. It is powder in these little packets that you mix with water, and it turns into all kinds of lovely things like protein shakes or chili or soup or mac and cheese or little cookies or just like anything you could possibly think of that sounds appetizing to eat. You can make it with an Optavia powder. I actually had somebody who was affiliated with Optavia in some way send me a bunch of these fuelings to my PO box, and I created these concoctions and I ate them on camera to give you my honest review. Let me tell you, it wasn't good. You don't have to watch that video to know that they were disgusting, obviously. And the other main conclusion from that video was that all of these things are extremely high in protein, but extremely low in calories. The idea being they're gonna keep you full, maybe, probably not, but it's gonna simulate the feeling of being full while also not really giving you enough calories to survive. We're talking like 800 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day, so much less than the actual human body needs to function. So it's no shocker when you start to drop so much weight really quickly because you're not fueling yourself properly. Your body is going into survival mode because you're not giving it what it needs to sustain itself. It's of my personal opinion that Optavia is like the starvation diet, the eating disorder diet. That's how I feel. But it can be very appealing to people because it is marketed as like a diet in a box. Like you just buy this system and you eat the food, fuelings, not food, and you're basically guaranteed to lose weight because of course you are. Your body is starving itself. But it's framed like this is such an easy, convenient thing that you can do. It takes no effort, no brain power. You pick 5 of the fuelings to eat throughout the day and that's it. You're gonna lose weight automatically. So that's some context about what Optavia is, and it's extremely expensive. So what you're saying here about your dad wanting to kind of pay you back for all that hard work that you did for the family after the loss of your mom and grandma, he's like, I want to gift you these really expensive products that I've heard a lot of good things about and that they're going to help you lose weight and address this thing that you've been struggling with for a long time. It was presented to you like a gift and you were thankful to have it. But as we'll see, things did not quite go to plan. Back to your story, you say, so I was determined. This was it for me. This was my way out. I was so excited. I lost a ton of weight really fast, like 30 pounds fell off. And then the grind. I was very lightheaded and weak every single day, but I trusted the process. My coach kept telling me that it would pay off and to stay the course. I ended up losing 80 pounds and I just couldn't believe that this was happening to me. Here are a couple of pictures at my smallest. But as time went on, I was terrified to have to go off of this diet. What will I do? They threw books at me and pamphlets of information, but the whole bottom line was that I needed to become a coach in order to pay for the boxes that I would need. And I'll be in this cycle forever, I guess, eating powdered food and feeling super weak and fatigued. What have I done to my body was on my mind every day. I surely couldn't afford this stuff. No way. I was stuck. That's something that I've speculated before in other videos about Optavia as well, that it's like, yeah, you lose all this weight because you're putting your body into starvation mode, but at some point you can't keep this up forever. You're gonna have to stop. Whether that's because you can't afford the products anymore, whether that's because you're too tired and too weak and fatigued and your body can't handle this kind of a diet anymore, or you just get sick of it and fed up and you're like, look, I want real food again, please. There is an expiration date here. It has to come to an end at some point. And this is something that I've always kind of pondered and speculated, like what happens to the people that come off of Optavia? And lucky for us, now we have a firsthand account of what actually does happen thanks to this story. So let's keep reading. Well, of course, I had to drop it all. My kids paid for me to carry on for a few more months of boxes, but it didn't make any sense to keep on knowing that I'd have to come off of it eventually. I did my best to maintain, but what happened is absolutely devastating. It started to seem like I had no control of my body anymore. anymore. I had to go to my doctor to talk to him about what I had done, how much I'd lost, and why I was suddenly gaining weight even though I was just eating regularly. The bottom line is my doctor informed me that this diet system, Optavia, destroyed my metabolism. Destroyed it. And he told me that I'm not the first one who has come to him with this issue. So here I am now, 18 months later, heavier than I have ever been, and it makes no sense because I eat so little and I'm very active. But wow, talk about depressing. I'm so lost and sad, and I just had to share my story with you. I wonder if you've heard any stories like this. I have not heard stories like this, but I have speculated, and this feels like the confirmation for me. This is me now with my dad, who is remarried and is very happy, and Hannah, I know that beauty comes from within. It comes from the heart and the sacrifices we're willing to make, from our character and our strength and the kind of person we are to our community and all that jazz. But to be quite honest, I'm miserable. This is a cautionary tale, one that I am not silent about. You're such a gift to the world. You're home with your baby, your husband is deployed, I'm a mom of a disabled vet. You're the kind of people our country should look up to. Wow, that's really high praise. Thank you. I do not feel deserving of any of that, but I appreciate it. You're blowing the whistle on things that are actually in some ways criminal. Thank you for all the hard work you put into your videos. All the research and time it must take has to be extensive. But I trust you, and that is why I felt free to send this. Oh, I'm in Washington, by the way. Go Dogs and Hawks and Mariners. My kids graduated from their school in Kirkland. We're Western Washington folks out here fighting the good fight just as you are. Sending all my love and a happy Independence Day to you. Okay, so context clues within this email. You talked about my husband being deployed, how I was living in Washington at the time, and how it was close to the 4th of July. And so I was like, wait a minute, when was this email sent to me? Oh yeah, last year, like over a year ago. I was living in Florida at the time, but I moved back to Washington with my daughter while my husband was deployed for 6 months. Then we moved back to Florida, and now we're back in Washington for good for the next 3 years. So it sounds like at the time you wrote this email, you're like, we're in Washington too. Happy Independence Day. Thanks for your husband's service, things like that. I was flabbergasted when I realized that this was an email from a year ago that I still haven't gotten around to reading yet. But that presented kind of a unique opportunity for me to follow up with the writer of this email. I emailed her back. I said, thank you for writing in your story. I'm sorry that I'm just now getting around to it, but it's been over a year. Do you have any updates? How are you doing these days? So this is a really cool circumstance where the writer of that email gave me a follow-up of how she's doing today in the summer of 2025. She said, hi Hannah, I always wondered if you had time to run across my story, but I figured that you were way too busy to see it, or possibly Optavia isn't on your radar. I was shocked to see your reply, and I'm so happy to hear from you. You have no idea how much I respect your work. What you do is so very important, and becoming a part of an MLM is more dangerous than ever. We need more of you, a lot more. Anyway, thank your husband for his service, and thanks to you and your baby for the sacrifices you make to have a spouse serving. Thank you, I appreciate that. So, where we left off, I really blew up. I mean, gigantic. I was so incredibly depressed, and I had no hope. If my doctor had that kind of news, where was I to turn? I was in pain every single day. My joints and my back hurt. I couldn't keep up with my grandkids. I never wanted to go anywhere. I felt like a loser. I was in a terrible cycle of depression, gaining weight back and realizing that I was headed right back to where I was in the beginning, but a whole lot worse off. Earlier this year, I had a major seizure. I almost lost my life. It was like my system shorted out, and it was the first one I'd ever had. That was my wake-up call, and I knew that I'd do whatever it took for me to get to a healthier place, no matter what kind of extreme effort it took. After I recovered, I just started walking. I put my laptop up on a board on my treadmill and walked. I worked up quickly to 7 miles a day, which is exactly what it would take to get me back to my regular weight, forcing my body to comply and regulating my system. It didn't take long for me to get back to a size 8, but the amount of extreme effort it took is not something many people would be able to push through. I had my own reasons for being willing to put my body through this, and I'm so grateful to say that I have escaped this entire Optavia scheme. I would not be surprised if others have not survived what's happened to them by falling into this trap, and that makes me sad. I will say that the main problem with this type of program is that they have a goal of getting you to your goal weight, getting you hooked, getting you dependent, almost like a drug dealer. Powdered food is where it's at, and you will need this to be where, who, and what you want to be. When you reach that goal, you're really stuck, and their solution to continue to afford this lifestyle is to become a coach or a distributor, to recruit more victims and earn the higher-ups and owners more money by selling the product. Put your before and after pictures up and fall into the whole MLM trap of turning on everyone you know and love with a weight issue by having to present them with this opportunity in order to afford your food, and that ruins relationships. Here is my current pick. God bless and take care. Thank you for sharing my story. Thank you for sharing your story. This was incredibly vulnerable of you to write out and to send to me to share for a platform of however many people. It's not easy to talk about about a really big insecurity of yours and to put it all on display and to talk about how you reached a goal and then you completely went in the opposite direction after you came off of that plan that you were doing with Optavia. I'm incredibly happy to hear that you have found a routine that works for you now that does not include Optavia, but it's heartbreaking what your body had to endure before you got to this better place, right? You went on like two completely opposite extreme ends of the spectrum in a short amount of time, and I'm sure that was really hard on your health. As it was, you said you had a seizure. Thank goodness you came out all right after that seizure, and thank goodness you have taken a hold of your health now and pursued the walking thing. That's fantastic. And most of all, I'm just so grateful for your vulnerability in sharing this story because it can help so many people. These are the kinds of stories that the company doesn't want you to hear about, because it's true that I'm sure a lot of people don't think through the long term when they join Optavia. They're only thinking like, oh, this is going to be a great solution for some quick and easy weight loss. And it is, that's true. Not a good solution necessarily. That's probably not the right word to use, but the products are going to fulfill on their promises. Let's just say that. It is going to cause you to drop a lot of weight quickly, and you might not consider how detrimental to your health that could be, both while you're on it and when you come off of it. This is the other side of the story that people need to hear about to be able to make an informed decision on if they're going to start Optavia in the first place. Because I would guess if people were presented with the information that when you come off of Optavia, not only are you going to gain all the weight back, but you're going to gain more and you're going to be in a worse place health-wise than you were when you started. I mean, call me crazy, but I feel like people would be like, I'm not getting involved with that. What the heck? That's why your story is so deeply important. Thank you for sharing it and for letting me include it in this video. This story number 4 says, hello, Hannah. My name is blank. I would like to remain anonymous as I still do vendor events with some MLM huns. More on that later. I'm a former bag lady, aka 31 consultant. My journey with MLM started with Avon in 2012, then again with 31 in 2023. I'll try to keep this short and sweet, but I am from the South, so we all know that's easier said than done. In 2012, I took a new position within the company I worked for, and as a result, was the victim of toxic office culture. I wasn't hitting it off with my coworkers, and when a friend of one of the girls asked me if I wanted to buy Avon, I jumped on it as a way to connect with someone, anyone in that office. Eventually, she asked if I would like to become a rep, and I said yes, as I was spending more than I would like to admit. We met at McDonald's on my hour lunch break a few days later. I signed my life away, and I walked away knowing that I need to set up my website and hand out a stack of catalogs. That's it. It went really well for about a year. I was actually making money, mostly because my coworkers were buying from me, and that only required one catalog left in the break room. Had I needed more than one pack of each catalog and flyer, I wouldn't have even came close to breaking even. Eventually, due to terrible toxic coworkers and supervisor, I went back to my previous position and no longer had time to sell as I was working 13-hour days. No one tried to stop me. It was an easy exit. Fast forward to tax season and my husband goes to have our taxes done. I get a phone call from my husband asking if I had business expenses. No. How about a 1099? Me squinting suspiciously at my phone. What's a 1099? I realized that no one had told me how to go about filing my taxes with this income. I was in my early 20s and had only had actual jobs since I was 16. No one had ever told me about anything other than a W-2. I called my former upline and she was of no help. She said that she didn't know what to tell me. Had she not been paying taxes? Where was her upline to help answer those questions? My husband left the tax preparation office, coming home to find me crying in the middle of the living room floor, trying to make heads or tails of my business. Thankfully, my aunt came over and helped me figure out what I needed to take to the tax office so that we could file. I was livid at my former upline. How many other representatives were just out there selling and not filing? I'm so thankful I left that mess before I ended up in jail for tax evasion. So let's touch on this. 1099 independent contractors. If you're a part of an MLM, if you're a freelancer, if you're an artist, if you sell on Etsy, if you're a YouTuber, you get 1099s. That is, you'll receive a 1099 if you have made over $600 in the year. Only if you've made like a significant amount or more than $600. I don't know where that figure even really comes from, but somewhere someone decided that's the cutoff for somebody to receive a 1099. You have a good point that perhaps people in MLMs don't understand the way that they're supposed to file their taxes. They don't know what a 1099 is because there's no one there to teach that to you. This is information that you're either expected to know or you have to go seek out the information on your own. So the fact that you went to your upline seeking information and advice about, hey, how do we deal with taxes being an Avon consultant? And she's like, I don't really know. Like, that's really not a good sign. That could mean one of several things. One, maybe she does know how she does her taxes, but she's not comfortable giving you tax advice. That's fine. Number two, she's not filing taxes at all. That's problematic. Number 3, maybe she hasn't made more than $600 in the year and she doesn't receive a 1099, so she doesn't even know that that's something she has to deal with. But I love that you pointed this out in your story, because taxes, it's a really unglamorous side of the whole deal, right? You want to focus on the mass amounts of income you're going to be making and living the life of your financial dreams and whatever, but no one wants to talk about taxes. And when you're a 1099 contractor, nobody is taking out taxes for you. The full amount is just getting deposited into your account or whatever, and it is your responsibility to set aside an amount for taxes later. I guess you don't have to set money aside in the moment, but if you don't, then you're going to get slapped with a huge tax bill at the end of the year. So it is best practice to just be kind of managing that yourself. This is not tax advice, but what I do personally is I take 33% of my income, anything that hits my account, take 33% of it out, set it aside. That's not my money. I'm not paying attention to that. That doesn't exist in my mind. And in my experience, what I have found based on my taxes is that is more than enough to cover my tax payment at the end of the year. We're good to go. I actually pay quarterly taxes. It's a whole thing. Okay. Find a tax professional, have them assess your personal situation. Okay. Not tax advice here. Point being, I have found for me that 33% setting that aside, that's more than enough. And I kind of get a little tax payment back. I give myself a little bit back come tax season. But that's information that you have to learn. You have to seek that information out. You have to decide these things for yourself, and you have to be proactive about it. And if you're not, that could get you in some real serious trouble, or you're going to have to pay a ton of money down the line. Sorry about the boring conversation about taxes, but it is really, really important. And it is pretty terrifying that sometimes when people get involved in MLMs, they have no knowledge of how any of this works, and they're just floating along freely, like not a care in the world, not considering taxes whatsoever. Very scary. Anyway, continuing on with your story, you say that now it's 2023. My experience with 31 was mostly pleasant. I wasn't pressured to join, and I made the decision to do so simply because there was an awesome deal on the starter kit, which included items that I had been wanting but couldn't afford. My upline was amazing and supportive and never love bombed me or yelled at me to recruit or sell more. In fact, I'm still very close to my direct upline, a director, and many of the other ladies I met. This isn't to say that there weren't red flags at the end, and by the end, I mean when 31 closed in December of 2024. This is where I have to thank you, because I saw the red flags from your videos of failed MLM companies and I braced for impact. Wow. I mean, that's really the goal, so I'm really glad to get that feedback, because yeah, when I'm covering MLMs that have closed, I make a point to say, if you're a part of an MLM company, watch out. This could happen to you too. Nobody is exempt from this. Do you see the devastation and the destruction that this has caused these people who have had their MLM company closed? Don't let that be you. Have a plan B. Recognize the red flags. Get out while you can. Or like you said, brace for impact. I never used 31 as a reliable source of income. I had always knew that it was temporary and inconsistent. Good. Great mindset to have when you're in an MLM, if you're going to be in an MLM. But having been taken out of the workforce in 2021 due to medical issues, I felt like I needed to contribute to my household. I was also bored. Nothing happened to make this a horror story until August of 2024. I had went to Impact, the company convention, in June. That's really ironic when you said I was bracing for impact. The company's about to close, and their final convention that they hold, the name of it was Impact. That's crazy. It took a lot of money and energy, neither of which I had a lot of. It was 2 days of meetings that could have easily been emails. There is where the love bombing and toxic positivity came in. I was so sick of hearing the words gratitude and grace by the time it was over. Gag. Just prior to this event, Home Office announced that they were cutting ranks. We would no longer have senior director and a couple of other ones. That's red flag number 1. But Impact was all happy people acting as if nothing concerning was happening behind the scenes. Fast forward to August and our new catalog came out. There was a new color called Blackberry and people went crazy for it, including consultants. I don't know if we clarified this yet in this story, so sorry to pause right here, but 31 Gifts, the company, they sell primarily bags. I think you called yourself a bag lady at the front of the story, but I just wanted to clarify that here. They sell tote bags, and it sounds like they come out with different launches of different styles and colors and stuff to like keep people engaged and continue to buy the products, right? So anyway, you said that there was a new color called Blackberry and people went crazy for it, including the consultants who are selling it. The majority of the catalog sold out in 1 week. We didn't understand how this could happen. Catalogs were supposed to last 6 months. That's red flag number 2. We were treated to a series of videos and lives in the Pink Bubble, which is the company consultant group, saying that they hadn't ordered as much in an effort to reduce overstock. Red flag number 3. They restocked a few items at the end of August and we were told to just sell sell other products. I'm sorry, but if somebody wanted a BlackBerry slouch tote, they weren't going to be satisfied with a black sport crossbody. That's not how this works, which looking back lets me know how their financial problems started and led to their demise. It eventually came to light that a large amount of stock had also been sold to Amazon in an effort to pay some debts. A lot of directors knew this, however, it came as a shock and felt like a slap in the face to everyone else. That was products that we could sell and make money. They literally took money away from their consultants. Okay, and that's really interesting that you mentioned this because I was looking up 31 to see, get a sense for what they sell, and it took me to an Amazon storefront, like an official 31 storefront that's still up today, although each of the bags now says currently unavailable, so they're not being sold on Amazon anymore, but all of the listings are still there. You can see they put all of the bags for sale on Amazon. So what motivation would people have to order these things through an independent consultant like yourself when I can order it on Amazon Prime and it'll be here tomorrow? That's easy enough, right? And as we know, Amazon has the monopoly on the search engines. It's the first thing that comes up when you search a brand name or a product. So to your point, they're taking business away from the consultants by selling on Amazon. Huge red flag that they're probably preparing for something big coming down the line, like closing or getting rid of their stock or whatever. At this point, I had already decided to leave at the first of the year because my health had worsened, although I had only told my husband, mom, and a few close friends. October 22nd, I'm at lunch with my mom and a family friend. As we're leaving, I got my phone out of my purse and opened it to over 20 messages and several missed calls, all saying how devastating it is, and some were asking if I was okay. I thought there had been an accident and people were checking on me. Then I realized that it was all from my team and other friends in MLM companies that had heard the news. The news being that we were closing in December. Our founder and CEO, Cindy Monroe, had made a video stating that there was simply no way to continue with the debt they were in. They considered alternative structures, read affiliate model instead of MLM, but, quote, that wouldn't be fair to consultants and goes against the company's standards. Gag again. I was fine. I had seen the red flags waving big as day thanks to your videos. My director was upset that I wasn't as devastated as she was, and when I explained why I wasn't, she said, telling me the red flags won't make it better. Okay, you do you, boo-boo. I stuck it out until the end just to eke out any last paychecks I could. I'm very happy for you that the impact of this news was not as devastating as it appears to be for several others, because you sort of were bracing yourself, expecting something like this to maybe happen one day, and you said you weren't really relying that heavily on the income you got from it, so it wasn't a really big deal in your life, which is good. But what's standing out to me about your story is that you had to learn from text messages and missed calls from other people on your team that your company was closing. This is a tale as old as time, it feels like. I've seen a similar situation in the closing of other MLM companies where it's like the reps are the last to know, and the reps are finding out when the world finds out. Or you're hearing it from social media, or you're hearing it from some random person who's like, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? I heard the news. And you're like, what news, right? Like you're totally caught off guard, blindsided. In your case, not so much because you were kind of prepared for it in the long haul, but for many, many people, this is a slap in the face. And the news is coming to you from like a text message or an email, like some really unofficial feeling source. It's devastating news for so many people, and it's crazy that people just find this out one day randomly when they get a few text messages. I feel like that speaks to the lack of respect that companies have for their representatives. They drop this on people completely out of the blue and they're like, yep, we're closing. Good luck. See you never. It's so upsetting for people who have dedicated so much of their time and money to these companies to just be left high and dry. Back to your story, you say, it was a shit show, and that's putting it nicely. Outlet sales crashed the site, Friday specials that also crashed the site and sold out in minutes. The whole months of December and January were emails and home office lives telling us to keep our heads up, that things would work out for us all, be grateful, blah, blah, blah. All while they had to stop personalization, which is the bread and butter of 31, in November to get things out the door. As of January 1st, they were backed up to orders in October. Everyone had jumped ship when the announcement was made, so there was a skeleton crew working the warehouse. People were missing items, getting other people's items, orders were abruptly canceled because they had oversold items. As I said earlier, it was a show. There was even a Facebook group formed by consultants called Is It Mine? I Could Have Yours, or something like that, in an attempt to reconnect people with their missing items. That's so crazy. The consultants are having to take it upon themselves in a Facebook group to get their orders. Oh my gosh. So disorganized, so unprofessional. They even stopped taking customer service calls from anyone, and they reduced us to an email that was also backed up to October being checked by another skeleton crew. The best best part, when those orders were canceled either by 31 or the customers who no longer wanted to wait, consultants had to pay back the commission they had earned, even if it was months later thanks to the backlog. Hey, sorry you didn't get your order. Can we have that commission back? Thanks. We get the email that 1099s were coming out, which is great. At least we can get the dreaded taxes out of the way. Think again. They had nearly doubled everyone's earnings and sent out an incorrect 1099 to pretty much everyone. We finally got corrected ones around the 1st of March. That in itself is very problematic because that puts you on a time crunch to get your taxes filed before the deadline. In my experience, all the 1099s that I receive, they come to me by January 31st. That's kind of when people guarantee, like, we'll have 1099s out to you by this date so that you have time to deal with it, to file, whatever. And so it sounds like maybe they did send them out around January time, but they were all wrong. So they had to go back and redo it, which took a couple more months, which now becomes your problem and puts you on a time crunch. I am now in an affiliate program and definitely not making as much money, but I don't have hidden fees and it's a small one-woman show with a lovely owner. My health is still declining and I blame some of the escalation on the last few months with 31. Park Lane, which is a different MLM, they sell jewelry, I believe. Park Lane offered all 31 directors and above to enter their company at the same rank, and the vast majority of them jumped at the opportunity. That is tea. That is tea to me. I did not know that. This is what's known as a bridge contract. That's where one MLM will essentially poach representatives and their team from a different MLM, like, hey, come over here. We'll give you some bonuses. We'll let you be at the higher ranks. We'll give you priority. And how do MLMs thrive? More people. More people, the better. So that's the benefit to these other companies. Here's an MLM that just burned to the ground. You got all these representatives with nowhere to go. And you got an MLM company over here who needs more people and is struggling to recruit. Match made in heaven. Write up a bridge contract, come on over. Extremely unfortunate because then those people don't learn the lesson, right? They just jump to another MLM to perhaps learn the same lesson again down the road when Park Lane or other companies have their own demise. That has happened where people jump to another MLM and that one closes. They jump to another MLM and that one closes. Like, when are you going to learn the lesson? Accepting a bridge contract might seem like the right decision at the time, but wow, down the road, I think you're going to regret it, honestly. The 31 field marketing manager, whoever she was, Hope, went to be the equivalent at Jordan Essentials. Mark Carr, I forget what he was, went to Signature Homestyles as virtually the same title. And we all know that Signature Homestyles shut down last month. Actually, I didn't know that. I've never heard of that company before. But there you go. Somebody jumping to another company that inevitably shuts down. I have no idea what happened to the owner or vice president, Angelie. Thank you for your videos. I wish you, your family, and the kitties a beautiful summer and all the happiness life can bring. Thank you very, very much. And whoa, what I love about your story and why I chose it for this video is because you were there for an MLM through the end. You saw how much of a disaster everything was. You were there firsthand. And now you're able to report on those firsthand experiences for our benefit so that we can learn about what that was like for you. And therefore serving as kind of a cautionary tale of what can happen to other people should they stay in their MLMs on their decline as well. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to go well. I think your story serves as a great warning to have a backup plan in place. Consider not relying on your MLM for your sole income. Maybe start pulling back a little bit. Maybe focus your energy and efforts on something else that's more fulfilling or will bring you even more income in a different, more stable stream, right? I love this story because 31 Gifts is not a company that we talk about that much, and we certainly won't be talking about it going forward because it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm very grateful for your insight in this really unique position of being someone who was there until an MLM's final day. Thank you so much for writing in your story. Moving on to the 5th story in this video, this one says, hello Hannah, I've been active in the anti-MLM content for many years now, and I was really happy to find your content. I've had many terrible experiences with MLMs, but I think this one was by far the most devastating. Okay, I'm remembering what this one is about now. I want to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this for eating disorders, okay? Very traumatic, extremely heavy, sad story coming your way. For privacy reasons, I won't go into crazy detail. I've been chronically ill my whole life, and it's only gotten worse over the years. I finally started to get answers and help, but no matter how many doctors and specialists I went to, no one could tell me what was wrong. In high school, I developed an ED to have some kind of control over what was happening with my body. After I graduated, it spiraled further, and I went to treatment for the first time in 2017. Over the course of the next 3 years, I bounced from treatment center to treatment center. I met so many incredible people and made so many wonderful friendships that I still have to this day. A group of people created a forum for all the people who went to a specific center to stay connected and to get and give advice. BodyWise. It was and still is a very helpful platform. However, near the end of 2021, I got a private message request from that group that would change the way I saw the world. At that time, I was still in very shaky recovery. The message I got was very sweet, mostly asking about my experience in that treatment center and advice about how to navigate it with a significant other. And over the course of a few weeks, we slowly became friends. That's when she started telling me about her new small business. I've always loved supporting small businesses, so of course I asked how I could support her. She said that she was selling wellness products and supplements, which immediately set off red flags in my head. Once she started going into weight loss products, I told her that it was pretty disgusting to be preying on people in recovery from an ED to sell weight loss products to. I then blocked her and moved on. Good for you. The next day I got a weird feeling in my gut and I decided to make a post in the group to warn other people and hopefully get her kicked from the group. I assumed that she was a random person who had found the group and decided to take advantage of a vulnerable population. It was a much more sinister, sinking feeling when I found out that she had actually gone to this center and was in recovery herself. Multiple people had started to make posts about her at this point and she was quickly removed from the group. Although it was a pretty awful experience, I was relieved that it was over. Unfortunately, this was not the end of it. Over the years, I've had more friends than I can count pass away as a direct result of their eating disorder. It never gets any easier, and I try to use it as motivation to keep going and live my life to the fullest because they won't be able to. And I do want to take a moment to extend my condolences. I can not even begin to imagine what that must be like to lose so many people close to you as a direct result of something that you are also struggling with. That's horrible. It feels disturbing, and I'm sure that feels really traumatic to watch people around you losing their battle with the same battle that you're fighting. And I just want to kind of leave some space for that. I'm really, really sorry that that's happening to you. And I hope that your mindset can be, as you said, like, I'm trying to take that as motivation to get myself better and to live my life for the fullest for them. I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. A few weeks after she'd been removed from the group, I got one of the worst messages of my life. A different friend reached out to me to let me know that someone I had been roommates with and remained close with had passed away the day before. Obviously, that alone was devastating, but the more people I talked to, the more angry I got. As I had more and more conversations, I started to realize that my friend did not block the It Works person. Okay, It Works. I don't think we've named the company until this point. You said that there were like weight loss or weight management type supplements that she was selling, and here you're saying that she was a part of the company called It Works. She not only kept talking to this It Works rep, but she bought the products. She had previously suffered from a very serious diet pill addiction and was told in her last hospital visit that if she started taking them again, it would lead very quickly to organ failure, and that is exactly what happened. At 25 years old, she lost her life to total organ failure. She had gotten married. She had Okay, it's been a long time since I've cried in a video, but I'm going to try to keep it together. She had gotten married. She started a career, and she was thinking about children. These losses are always very complicated, but it was so much harder knowing why she got back into doing that again. I never saw MLMs in a positive light, of course, but this is really what made me passionate about advocating against them. Thank you for the work you do and the kindness you radiate. I understand if this one is a little too dark to share. Even if you just read it, it means the world to me. Oh my gosh. Okay. Whew. Take a breath. Just the fact that she was somebody who was so young and had so much life ahead of her. And it sounded like she was trying to seek recovery for this addiction that she had to things like diet pills and an eating disorder and things like that. And so to think that she was like in a setting to try and seek help for that and was taken advantage of, and it cost her her life. It's just like, it's heartbreaking. I don't know what else to say. It's just really, really devastating. And I don't know how to approach this other than just saying, I'm so, so sorry that you lost this person in your life for this reason. It's horrible. It's horrifying. And as I'm looking at this story, I feel the need to make a legal disclaimer, right? This is part of my job, that we cannot blame It Works, the company, for the death of this young woman. We can't make that connection. But we can have a conversation about the mindset that people are in when they join MLM companies and how they view everyone as an opportunity. They seek out the vulnerabilities. They look for people who appear weak or who are struggling or have something that they believe their MLM could address. And it sounds like this person in this company who was also struggling with these issues used her access to a group, an online group of people who were experiencing the same thing, and she exploited that access. She took advantage of people's vulnerabilities so that what? She could make a few dollars of commission when she sells a bottle of pills? Like, it's infuriating. And this is certainly not the first time that we've seen this dynamic. This is an extremely common dynamic that we see in these horror story videos where somebody takes advantage of another person who is in a vulnerable position for their own financial gain. That tale as old as time. This, where it feels like that interaction, that product pitch, the sale of those pills to this particular person started a chain reaction that led to that person's demise. It is not okay. Again, for legal purposes, I am not stating that It Works products caused this person's death. Not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that this behavior has to stop. It is not okay. It's not acceptable. And preying on people in this way has the potential for serious, serious consequences. Life-ending consequences. This is the true danger of the MLM model, where you have people who are so desperate to make money that they will do whatever it takes and they will pitch whoever in whatever circumstances to make a little bit of money. This young woman who lost her life, these were personal battles that she was fighting, right? This is something she was dealing with in her own life. She made the choice to purchase these products. She made the choice to take them. And there are many different facets that I'm sure went into making that choice for her. But it begs the question, would she have taken these particular products if there wasn't a person in her support group, her recovery group, actively trying to sell her on it? Would she have come across it otherwise? Would she have thought about it otherwise? Would she have bought them otherwise? Would she have taken them otherwise? Maybe yes, maybe no. Oh, hi Zeke. He was taking a nap over there, but I feel like he sensed that I was feeling a little bit upset. Thank you for my emotional support, kitty. It makes me really upset that somebody's recovery was put in jeopardy because of another person's greed and their desire to make a little bit of commission. Once again, an extremely nuanced discussion that I'm not in a mental place to really even articulate myself very well at the moment. I'm not trying to place sole blame on anyone or anything, in particular the company or the rep herself that sold these products. I want this to serve as food for thought and to be a conversation about the true impacts of joining an MLM company and the pressures that people feel and the lengths they are driven to go, all in the name of making a sale. Okay, so with that was a lot, very heavy. I did not expect to cry. I've read this story a few times to try and collect myself and prepare myself to be able to film this video in a composed fashion, so I'm sorry I kind of lost it. But this is one of, if not the most horrific stories I have ever read on my channel, which is why I feel like it was deserving of a spot within this 100th video today. So thank you so much for sending in your story. Again, I'm incredibly sorry that you lost a person close to you in this way, and I'm wishing you nothing but health and happiness and recovery in your future. Story number 6 says, "Hi Hannah, I really enjoy your videos and hearing about all those horror stories. I originally didn't think that I had an MLM horror story until I watched that one about the Mary Kay rep hitting the mailbox. Then I remembered I had my own Mary Kay horror story. To this day, I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the rep's audacity. For context, I used to manage a domestic violence shelter. Here we would take in women and children who were actively fleeing an abusive situation. Almost all of these women were in incredibly vulnerable situations and were unstable in multiple aspects of their lives. This included little to no finances and no understanding of healthy boundaries. We frequently had community partners come in and provide workshops for the people at the shelter, and this usually went great. The women absolutely loved learning about different things in the community, and most went on to utilize those resources when they left the shelter. That was until a Mary Kay rep offered to do free makeup clinics at the shelter. These Mary Kay reps always inserting themselves where they do not belong. At first, everything seemed okay. We had worked with Mary Kay reps previously, and they often donated makeup to the shelter, as the women did not usually have money to buy their own. I'd never met these reps, but I'd never heard any bad things about them. However, as I was now the manager of the shelter, I was the key point of contact for this new rep and all of her questions. The first time I met her was at the shelter when she was getting set up for her first clinic. Whenever somebody comes to the shelter for the first time, we have them sign a confidentiality agreement just saying that they won't disclose any information about the shelter location or any of the residents. It's very straightforward. I have never had somebody ask so many many questions about the confidentiality agreement than this Mary Kay rep and spent at least 20 minutes answering all of her questions. That's a red flag, okay? Because it makes me feel like she's probably trying to suss out where she's able to weasel her way in, maybe? Like, yeah, I know there's this agreement, but like, what are the loopholes to the agreement? That feels like maybe what she's doing. It seems like a no-brainer to be like, yes, of course, absolutely, no problem. Sign the agreement, move along your merry way. To stop and to like read through it and to ask so many questions clarifying what it means, not a good sign at all. First, it was very general questions, such as to what extent can she talk about residents and her time doing the makeup clinic at the shelter. I repeatedly told her that if she questioned whether she should talk about something, then she probably shouldn't talk about it. That makes me feel like she was probably looking to report back to her Mary Kay community somehow about this like wonderful service that she did. You know how when they like speak on stage at conferences or they're hosting Zoom calls and they're like kind of tooting their own horn and talking about how great they are and how much difference they're making in people's lives. I bet she wanted to be able to cite this in the future. Oh yes, I went and I did a clinic at a homeless shelter for women and I brought them the joy of Mary Kay makeup or whatever it is. Like, but I love your response. Like, if you're questioning if that's an okay thing to do or not, maybe just don't do it. Then the question started getting more specific. She started asking about the residents' employment and how much they can reveal to their employer. I informed her that it was up to the residents themselves to disclose that information as long as they did not reveal the shelter location or any information about other residents. Finally, I had to cut her short and I told her that she could email me with her other questions, but there were residents quite literally waiting in line to get their makeup done. This encounter raised a lot of red flags for me, especially because I knew that Mary Kay is an MLM. I talked with one of my coworkers about the encounter and all of the questions that the rep asked, and she told me that I was probably looking too deep into it because of my preconceived ideas about Mary Kay and MLMs as a whole. While I still had an icky feeling about the whole thing, I brushed it off and I tried to convince myself that my coworker was right. Never ignore that gut feeling, girl. There's something there. Listen to it. After all, I had talked to the residents who got their makeup done and they loved it and had nothing bad to say about the Mary Kay rep. So maybe I was overreacting. Spoiler alert, I was not overreacting. A week later, when she was scheduled to come in again, I received a slew of emails from her with more questions. This time, she wasn't beating around the bush and was very upfront about why she actually wanted to volunteer to do makeup at the shelter. She asked me question after question about recruiting residents to work for her, attempting to spin it in a positive light. She stated that these women were struggling to find jobs and make money, and if they came to work under her, they would start to make money and get back on their feet. I was floored. I informed her that attempting to recruit residents to work for her and Mary Kay was inappropriate and that she was no longer welcome to come back into the shelter. She continued to send many more emails trying to justify why it would be a good thing for the residents to come work for her. I told her again that my decision was final and she was not welcome at the shelter. I thought that was the end of it until she found my work number, which is not public information. She called me time after time saying that I was making the wrong decision and that she only wanted what was best for the residents. Do you want what's best for the residents or do you want what's best for you? Because as we all know, recruiting people into an MLM benefits you, the recruiter, more than it does the recruits. And people often convince themselves, no, I'm just doing you a service. I'm just helping you out. I have something that you could really benefit from and I want to offer that opportunity to you. That's the way they spin it in their mind to help them sleep at night, but we all know it's a self-serving motive underneath it all. At this point, I was convinced that she was going to show up at the shelter, and I told her that if she continued to call me and or showed up, I would be contacting the police. I did not hear from her again. I'm still absolutely shocked that she attempted to recruit vulnerable women into her MLM. Again, these women had no finances and no healthy boundaries, which I'm sure is exactly why she chose to prey on this population. I have a feeling this wasn't her first time doing this, but I'm glad I had enough knowledge and common sense to put a stop to it before she put the women into a more unstable situation than they were already in. Thank you so much for reading this and sending lots of love to you, your kitties, and your baby. Here's the kitty for you. And thank you for bringing awareness to this issue, and I always look forward to watching your videos. I believe that your gut instinct was right on the money in the beginning, and she proved that to you, right, with her follow-up emails explicitly stating her desires and her motives. And I want to give you major props for putting an end to it in the sense that you're like, you are not welcome here. These women at the shelter probably didn't realize it at the time, but you were protecting them, right? You were that line of defense to put a stop to it before it began and to say, look, you're not welcome here. This population of people right here, they're not for you. You do not have the right to take advantage of of them, not on my watch. And I love that so much. Thank you for using your position of power in that way for the best interest of the residents. And I'm hoping that this Mary Kay rep can look a little differently at her actions going forward. I mean, threatening to call the police on her, that hopefully is a wake-up call, right? Like, oh my gosh, okay, she's threatening to call the police on me. Maybe I should reevaluate my actions, right? That's the best case scenario. Did it work out that way? We'll never know. But a girl can dream. I really hope that she is out of Mary Kay now and that she's not preying on vulnerable populations. And it's pretty sick and twisted that she clearly understood the assignment, right? She was looking for a specific population of people to prey on for her Mary Kay business. And thank goodness for you, because if you were not in that position, who knows if she would have been successful at that or not. Story number 7 says, "Hey Hannah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you do in spreading awareness of the harmful business practices inherent in the MLM industry." Zeke, you are really making like a star appearance in this video today. Has he shown up in every single story so far? I feel like he did. Actually, no, he took a nap for a little bit. He's really giving the people what they want, right? Delivering on the hype of the 100th episode. I've seen far too many friends and acquaintances fall victim to the lies and emotional manipulation used by these companies to make a sale, and your videos are clearly making an impact in that world. Thank you. This story has been bouncing around in my head since it happened, and when I started watching your videos a year ago, I knew I'd eventually have to send it in, so here it goes. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I work in a profession where confidentiality is very important, so some of this may be intentionally vague, and I apologize. To put it very simply, part of my job involves interviewing couples and asking at times very personal questions. One day, a couple came into the waiting room and I immediately got weird vibes. The guy seemed nice enough, but the woman seemed so stuck up it hurt. She was around 30 years old, but I found it odd that she was wearing a blush pink pantsuit that looked like something my grandma would wear. She was very pretty, but had a nasty look on her face and barely looked up from her phone to address me. Either way, I had a job to do, so I pulled them both into a room to start my questions, and we began. Normally, these questions are directed at the guy first, but while I was talking with him, I couldn't help but notice that she would not get off her phone. Like I said, these are very personal questions for a very serious matter, so people are normally invested in what is going on. The whole time, I could not figure out what her deal was until I got to her, and I asked her what her job was. She was a Mary Kay rep. Suddenly, it all made sense. The perfect hair and makeup, the blush pink pantsuit, the superior attitude, the inability to look up from her phone for 2 minutes at a time. I had never interviewed an MLMer before, so the chance to get some first-hand real answers was more than a little intriguing. These appointments are normally about 2 hours long, so I'll stick to what is the most upsetting. While asking her about her life, she happened to tell me the story of how she got into life coaching. I knew some stuff about MLMs at the time, but hadn't come across your videos yet, so I didn't know this was their fancy term for brainwashing their fellow cult members. She said that she had a terrible experience with a previous life coach and she had lost thousands of dollars to them, and that after that happened, she was determined to not let that happen to her or anyone else again. So she started to become a life coach for other women. You heard that right. She felt conned out of thousands of dollars, so rather than learn a lesson from that and leave the MLM world behind, she figured that she would go and do the same thing to other women. As she was explaining her job, she kept talking about how happy she is to be making such a positive impact on the lives of the women she coaches. Her downline. I couldn't help but see the irony in the fact that she, according to her, went from being in horrible debt because of a life coach to immediately thinking that she was qualified to be a life coach for other women. What made it all so much worse for me was the fact that this woman was from a minority group and kept harping on the fact that she almost exclusively recruited other minority women to give them the best life possible. She said that she coached nearly 100 women across the country, meaning that there were nearly 100 disenfranchised women out there who had been intentionally preyed upon by this woman, also she could make a quick buck off of their losses. We continued for about an hour and a half while she patted herself on the back for all the wonderful things she was doing for her community, until we got to the financials, right? The numbers, the cold, hard numbers, they never lie. Another reason I was particularly giddy about this couple was that part of the questioning involved me getting a thorough breakdown of their finances, from daily spending to looming debt. Foreshadowing. I started with all the usual things, phone bills, groceries, etc., and everything seemed fine. Then I held my breath and I asked about credit card bills. Nothing. The guy said that they're all paid up on their credit cards, and I was shocked. I'm looking at this woman's $2,000 a month income and having to take that at face value. Nevertheless, we continue. And I ask if they have any personal loans, at which point the woman looks up and goes, "Oh, do you mean like credit cards?" And I'm like, "Yes? Why did you not chime in when we were just talking about credit card debt? What?" And there it is. She starts rattling off names of cards I had never even heard of. She kept naming them like she was building a Pokemon deck. $10,000 in credit card debt for her alone. And there it was. The woman who was giving life coaching to nearly 100 women and who claimed to be such a boss babe was drowning in credit card debt and making minimum payments to get by. In total, the couple was nearly $80,000 in debt. It was insane because the whole prior hour and a half, she was looking at me dead in my eyes and talking about all the wonderful things her life coaching business was doing for her and how it's so nice to not have to worry about money anymore. Talk about the cognitive dissonance. How do you reconcile going from, "Oh, things are so great financially, no problems here," to, "Oh yeah, actually we have 80 grand in debt and we're really struggling to make it." These are the mental gymnastics that people in MLMs have to go through. They have to justify it somehow. And it's really remarkable, honestly, when you're sitting across from somebody and they tell you one thing and then the next hour they paint you a completely different picture than what they told you before. And you're sitting there like, how do these two things mix and why are you not seeing it? What is going on? That's because they've done a lot of their own mental work and brainwashing themselves into thinking that this is a good thing for them when it is clearly not. Like I said, the numbers do not lie. We finish the questions and they leave, but that's not where it ends. Months later, they come back randomly and they're saying that they want to stop the process and they want a refund. She keeps complaining about how long everything is taking while I'm explaining to her that they're actually ahead of schedule. Something was fishy, but I called my boss to explain and she starts looking over the report that I had filled out. Mandatory explanation, my boss is very peculiar. She doesn't really get social norms and she's very straightforward. Sometimes it can make things difficult, but other times it's great. As she's looking at their information, my boss says, "Well, we already did a lot of the work, but you can give a refund for X amount since we haven't gotten there yet. But you should recommend that they file for bankruptcy." And I almost burst out laughing. I went back into the room with a straight face and got to tell this woman who had looked down on me and been rude to me for months that we could offer her a partial refund, but that my boss recommends that she files for bankruptcy. The look on her face was priceless. She was so offended, it was comical. Eventually, she left with the partial refund, but wouldn't you know it, a couple weeks later, she filed a chargeback on the credit card she used to pay us initially, and since it's very hard to fight those in our line of work, she won and got all of her money back. All of that work I had done had been for naught, but in the end, I still feel like I got something out of it. I got to see the actual look on a Hun's face as she got a dose of reality. I tried to keep this short, keep doing what you do. I hope this gave you as good of a laugh as it gave me. P.S. If you want an inside joke of mine, my first experience of someone trying to recruit me was when a high school friend of mine tried to recruit me into Herbalife when we were in college. I drew out the plan on a whiteboard as she explained it to me, and I showed her that it was a pyramid scheme. And I explained how it's a pyramid scheme. Her answer, quote, "It's a pyramid, but it's not a scheme." I use that line to this day. Feel free to borrow it for a good giggle. I do love that. It's a pyramid, but it's not a scheme. Okay, whatever you have to tell yourself, right? God, that might be a good thing to put in this frame, right? When I decide to switch it out. Oh, that's so good. I might borrow it. I might full on steal it and put it back there one day. And what a wild situation you found yourself in. I don't know what you do for work. Like you said, you didn't specify it. I'm still kind of puzzled of like what it could possibly be, but it sounds like you have to get a lot of personal information about these clients. And I just love that you have a perspective that really not many other people are gonna have, or they're not gonna get to experience the same thing, where you are interviewing somebody in an MLM about what they do for work, about their debts. And it kind of feels like there's really nowhere for that person to hide. It is all laid out there, painting a very clear picture. And I feel kind of sad, honestly, that bankruptcy is the recommendation for them. No one wants to hear that. That's terrifying, right? But as you said, you were there. You got to deliver the news to someone who's in an MLM, giving them like their first dose of reality. Like, look, lady, things are not going as well financially for you as you seem to believe. The professional higher up in my line of work here, they're recommending that you need to file for bankruptcy. Let that be a wake-up call. And kind of going back to the cognitive dissonance thing, a lot of the times when I see people posting on social media about how great they're doing in their MLM and how much they love their life and whatever, sometimes I'm like, do you actually believe the BS that you're saying? Like, do you actually truly believe this in your heart, or do you know that you're lying? Do you know that you're being deceptive when you post this kind of thing? Because the goal is obviously to convince people that this is your reality, and so that they are interested in what you have to offer so that they join your team and you can make money off of them, right? So the ultimate goal is to have everybody convinced and fooled that you're living a fantastic life and making lots of money, right? But it sounds like in your interaction with this Mary Kay rep, it's almost like she truly did believe in her heart that she was doing well and she was living a great financial life. But then she's also slapped in the face with like, here's your debts, and you probably need to file for bankruptcy. Like, it seems like she was really buying her own BS in that moment. And I don't know, I guess I've always kind of assumed that people who are lying about how great things are going for them on social media, they kind of have that realization deep down, at least, that like they know that they're kind of being deceptive, they know they're lying, but it's fine because they have an ulterior motive to do that, right? But now I'm considering like, oh wait, like people might actually really buy into the belief that they're doing great. And I don't know what's worse. I don't know what is scarier, to be honest with you. I guess there could be a side of this as well. I'm just totally speculating and going on a tangent right now, but there could be maybe a side of this as well where people just don't have good financial literacy and they don't really understand the whole like profit versus loss, income versus expense formula. And so to her, if she is seeing, I think you said $2,000 a month hitting her bank account from Mary Kay or from her coaching business or whatever she calls it, right? To her, that probably feels like, hey, I'm making a couple grand a month. That feels good. That feels successful. Maybe that's more money than she's ever made before. Maybe to her, that really does feel like a good job because she's looking at that information in a bubble, in a vacuum, right? She's not considering the bigger picture. And when you take that amount of income as compared to the amount of credit card debt and the expenses it costs to keep your business up and running and things like that, then you understand like, oh, this is really not a clear picture. But I guess if you're not financially literate in that way, then whatever money you see coming in, that feels good. And that feels like your business is doing really well, right? Because again, you're not looking at the whole picture. And point being, maybe that's where the disconnect is. Maybe they're not intentionally lying or trying to misrepresent how well they're doing, because to them, it feels like they actually are doing well. And maybe it's not until moments like this when you're sitting down with an outsider or an external objective source who's laying it all out there for you that you realize like, oh crap, okay, maybe Mary Kay is not going as well for me as I thought it was. Loved this story, so much to think about here, and it really does give us a peek into the mindset of people that are in MLMs and what they believe success looks like and the cognitive dissonance that goes into that as well. This 8th story says, hello, Hannah. I hope this email finds you well, and I cannot thank you enough for giving your viewers an opportunity to tell you their MLM horror stories. I recently found your channel on YouTube and have been binge watching for a few months now. I love your channel, and I especially appreciate your MLM horror story series because I have a horror story of my own. When I say horror story, I mean horror story. So I decided to write in and tell my story in hopes that if you graciously read it in a video, it would help someone get out of an MLM or prevent them from ever entering one in the first place. Frankly, I wish I had never been a part of one myself. Note, due to the people that I know that are still in the MLM I was in, please keep my name anonymous. This story is very unique, so the details might give me away, but I have to risk telling it anyway for my own sanity. Well, here we go. My MLM experience started with a friend from church saying I need a model for a spa day challenge I'm doing for the month of March. Would you be willing to get a free makeover as my model? Mary Kay. It has Mary Kay written all over it. Sorry for the 3rd Mary Kay story in a row. That was unintentional on my part. I wasn't that interested, and I did not really care about my appearance in that way as I was a tomboy by nature. My friend gave me a sob story about not meeting her director's challenge and that I would love to be pampered. Unfortunately for me, I eventually caved in and said yes. Here's the thing. I showed up to my friend's house ready to be pampered, but that is not what I experienced. If you've not guessed already, my friend was a Mary Kay consultant and there was zero pampering going on, as there rarely is in these, free spa day, free facial, whatever they try to sell it as. She had all the products laid out on a tiny tray and I had to wash my own face and apply my own makeup. Remember earlier when I said that I was a tomboy? Yeah, I had no idea how to do makeup, and honestly, neither did my friend. Plus, I immediately had a bad reaction to the skincare she had me use. That right there is actually so common, I feel like. The number of stories I get about people going to Mary Kay parties or spa days or whatever and having a bad reaction, it's kind of alarming. A lot of people do not react well to the Mary Kay products. I liked some of the products, so I bought a few, but just to help my friend meet her sales goals. Yes, that was a gigantic mistake. Before I go on with my story, I would like to preface the rest of it by saying that I was an extremely insecure person back then, and I was easily manipulated by basically everyone in my life, including the husband that I had at the time. This fact played a huge role in getting sucked into an MLM. Also, I had no idea what an MLM was or what the term meant at that point in my life. Now, back to the story. Apparently, when I bought Mary Kay products, it was also an invitation to get the recruitment pitch because you'll save 50% on the products you buy. Since I had no skincare routine, I thought that maybe this was the time to start, and I wanted to help my friend anyway, so I joined as a consultant. What they failed to mention, although I'm certain it was written in the small fine print of the contract I signed, was that to keep my consultant status, I had to buy inventory, and of course they said that the more I bought, the easier it would be to sell because I have product on hand. Remember when I said that I was joining as a favor to my friend and for personal use? Yeah, well, no one accepted that, and no one told me that there was a monthly and quarterly quota, and I had to buy at least $400 in products to even get the 50% discount. I decided to give being a consultant a good try to recoup my money. Hint, I never did recoup what I spent. I was incredibly shy at the time, and I hated confrontation, which was not good because the directors wanted us to talk 30 women in 30 days into getting pampered. There was always a silly challenge to win some cheap prize for recruiting others, like old product or costume jewelry pins. I ended up recruiting 3 people in my first 2 months as a consultant, although I am sure it's because people felt sorry for me. Yes, I regret that decision to this day because all 3 of those women are still consultants. No way. Even though it is now 10 years later and they have made no money as a consultant, which is normal as I have since learned. Here's where the horror gets bad. Remember when I said that my church friend recruited me? Yeah, well, that brings back some terrible memories, and I'll probably cry while I write this, but it must be said. Not only was I in an MLM, which is cultish, I was in a cult. You heard that correct. I was in a cult, and the pastor was all about his members, including his wife, joining and working the Mary Kay business. To give some context, as a church leader, the pastor would come to our houses, talk about very personal things with his members, including children, and then the next church day, which was Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and twice on Sunday, he would tell the entire church about what he was told by the families in private. He would make us go to the front of the congregation, and we were expected to state what we learned from our very private personal conversation that he had just told to all of the members. Can you imagine my horror when he did this to me, a non-confrontational, scared little mouse of a person? I was mortified, but I did it anyway because I thought that's what I was supposed to do as a believer in God. But the story doesn't end there. The pastor and his wife thought that Mary Kay was the best thing since sliced bread, and they had no problem guilting and manipulating their members into joining Mary Kay, even though no one was making any money from it, including me. They told people it was, quote, God's will for them to join, and if they did not join, they were not being faithful to God, and that they would no longer have God's protection if they did not listen and join. Are you actually kidding me? That's, whoa. A Mary Kay church cult. That's a first for me. They signed up teenagers as soon as they turned 18, whether they wanted to join or not, and they even signed up people who no longer attended the church without their knowledge to meet Mary Kay quotas. The pastor and his wife used to have the Mary Kay members stand in front of everyone and lay out our plans to work our business, and if it was not good enough, they would berate us and make us come back the next week to tell what we had done to work our business, basically shaming us. As your viewers have learned, it was never our business to work, but I digress. The story gets even worse. Additionally, my son was going through a terrible medical condition causing him many surgeries and tons of pain as a teenager at the time, and the pastor said to me in front of the entire church that his condition was brought on because I was not working my Mary Kay business and that I was not being faithful to God, quote unquote, because I was not making any money with my business. Yes, he said this to me, and for years I felt incredibly guilty as I truly believed that I was the cause of my son's pain and suffering, especially because my husband also agreed with the pastor that it was my fault. I'm not sure if anyone can even imagine the pain, guilt, and shame I felt as a mom. This was one of the worst times in my life, and it took years to heal from this abuse. I don't even know what to make of this. Like, I feel like I just read a very dystopian paragraph about like church leaders who are also in Mary Kay, and like the company is kind of intertwined with the church service. Like, you're getting up in front of people to talk about Mary Kay while you're at church. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And to say that you are to blame personally for the dynamics in your family and your husband's condition because you just weren't being faithful to God because your Mary Kay business wasn't doing very well. How? That just seems like the most insane and delusional conclusion to draw, right? How can the pastor say that your son's condition is all your fault because your Mary Kay business isn't doing well? It doesn't add up. But I can also completely understand religious manipulation, cult manipulation, brainwashing. If you are so deeply involved and indoctrinated into this group of people and into this system and the things that they're telling you, you will believe it. As nonsensical as that whole section was, right? As nonsensical as drawing the conclusion between your son's ailments and your Mary Kay business is, I do understand how the brainwashing would contribute to you kind of just believing it and not really questioning that, right? Thankfully, after too many years, I left the church. I left Mary Kay and I got divorced, and I'm so much happier for it. Unfortunately, my friend is still with that church and still in Mary Kay because she is as fully brainwashed as I was. Hold on, let me put a pin in this too. I have to assume that the pastor and his wife of this church, cult, whatever, they're likely like the top uplines of this Mary Kay team, right? This is probably a very big income stream for them to have all of their church members, as soon as they're turning 18, it sounds like, sign up for Mary Kay so that they can benefit financially off of that. The manipulation runs so deep in this organization, it seems. So you said that your friend is still in the church, still in Mary Kay, and still very brainwashed. She refuses to listen to me or watch any anti-MLM videos, and she uses the old cliche we've heard 1,000 times that Mary Kay is not an MLM, it's women helping women. Yeah, no, it's not. To this day, several of my former friends have lost thousands of dollars to Mary Kay and have a garage full of expired or expiring products to show for it. As for me, I'm now extremely anti-MLM, and I scrutinize every business that comes my way to make sure it does not have an MLM structure, and I never joined another MLM again. Yes, love to hear it. I also refuse to buy any products from any MLM company, regardless of whether it's a friend selling the products or not. No one even bothers me about joining an MLM anymore because I'm not that shy, easily intimidated, and manipulated girl anymore. I will say that videos like yours keep me abreast of all the MLM companies in operation today, as there have been a few that have literally surprised me. I appreciate the time you take to make your viewers aware of these scammy companies, and thank you for doing it in such a way that is kind to those who are stuck in them. If they're anything like I was, they have no idea that they're in a destructive, cultish company. Please keep doing what you do, as I am 100% positive it has helped so many people stay out of or leave an MLM, including me. I hope that one day I get to hear you read my story in one of your videos, as it will be healing for me for you to do so. Thank you for all you do. Well, I hope that that goal was accomplished for you. I think even just writing the stories can be really healing for some people, and just knowing that like they're being sent to an inbox and someone's going to read this one day. Okay, someone's going to hear about my experience. That's really comforting. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to read this story on my channel. And I chose it for the 100th episode because what do you mean? There was a cult, church, Mary Kay organization. Like, it's just so wild. I have not heard of that before. I've definitely heard of like different church communities being involved in MLMs kind of as a whole, or like generally speaking, like a lot of church members are involved in different companies. We know that members of the Mormon church specifically are very heavily involved in MLMs because there's a lot of overlap in those types of structures. And we've seen at like lots of company conferences or events that they host, like conventions, they'll have like a group prayer that they do. I know Monate on the Sunday of every one of their conventions, they do like a church service. There's a lot of overlap between religion and church and MLMs. But this is like a whole extra level where members of this specific church, or as you called it, a legitimate cult, almost feel maybe like required to be a part of Mary Kay, or else they're not being faithful to God or something like that. Talk about religious trauma. Talk about religious manipulation. My goodness. Love to hear that you got out of that. Love to hear that that's in your past. You sound like you're on a much more positive path going forward, and thank you so much for sending in your story. Story number 9 says, my name is C, and this is my Monate horror story. When I first joined Monate, I was invited by a girl who I had gone to high school with. We were not friends in high school and had maybe only said 1 or 2 words to each other throughout the years. I had her on Instagram, and one day out of the blue, she asked me what I was up to. That's a red flag, right? We chatted and got on the subject of how hard it can be to make friends as an adult when you're working full time and do not have the time to go out with friends. This conversation led to her telling me about the Monate opportunity. At first, I was incredibly skeptical, and I looked up the company. This This was back in 2019 when the articles on hair loss lawsuits were on Google. I told her, no thank you, and I left it at that. A few weeks later, I was watching her story and she was posting about how she was always hanging out with Monat friends, going out with them on lavish lunches, and posting her paychecks. Remind you that paycheck posting is against compliance, but back then when I first joined, it was very common to see them post these things. She was in her Smart Start period and earned a paycheck of $1,200 that really spoke to me because I was in a financial situation with credit card debt. I was not aware that she was in Smart Start, and I believe this was her actual weekly income because she did not disclose that on her story. So for context, when you first join Monat, you're given like a limited time bonus period where you can earn some extra money in bonuses. It's called your Smart Start. And I think they changed the name of it recently. I talked about it in a video once. I think it's called like Power Start or something now. They're shifting the compensation plan all the time, these guys. But point being, she had just joined the company. She was in her like special bonus era Smart Start period, and she earned a really big check of $1,200. That's really significant, right? But as you said, she's not clarifying on her Instagram story like, oh, this is just a bonus check I earned because I hit these goals in the company really fast upon joining. No, no, no. She wants people to believe this is what's possible on a regular, steady basis, on a weekly basis, as you were led to believe. Extremely deceptive. And yes, again, you are not allowed to post your paychecks in Monat, but that does not mean that people don't do it. After seeing her and a few of her Monat friends at a gathering, I caved and I became a market partner because I saw how much they were all making. They were all in their Smart Start period, so they were getting the block bonuses, which made it seem like they were making so much money. Once I was in the business, she introduced me to her upline, who was an MMM, that's Managing Market Mentor, the rank in the company. And she had her white Cadillac. Very quickly, I was put into all these different group chats with all these different women who were welcoming me and making me feel very special and included. A little backstory, I was bullied in high school and lacked friendship. The only friends I had at the time were the guys my husband hung out with. I was 22 when I joined, so it had been a while since I had female friends or even had conversations with multiple people in a group setting. I quickly fell for the fake Monat community. My upline urged me to throw a Meet Monat event at my house in which she invited her entire downline, her sideline who we're calling O, and her upline. Her sideline O at the time was her best friend. This is important to note for the upcoming drama. I invited a bunch of people that I was told to reach out to that I hadn't spoken to in over 7 years, and I invited around 30 people. No one showed up but one girl. She was at a party with a bunch of Monat sharks. Okay, so it sounds like you invited people from your past, high school, whatever, to this party, and nobody from that pool of people showed up except for one. And what she walked into was you and all of your Monat people. Yikes, that sounds like a social nightmare, right? Because now you're all jumping on this one girl, like, join our team, join our team, join our team. Oh, so sad. Okay. The party ended up being incredibly fun as we were all drinking alcohol and singing to old songs that we used to like when we were younger, and I thought to myself that I had finally made it. I found a community who understood me and welcomed me with open arms. 3 months later, I was at the 3rd rank in the company, AMB, and I was close to hitting my 4th rank as I was moving up quickly. I was called the VIP queen in group chats, but the truth was I sucked my family into becoming VIP customers, and my uplines placed VIPs under me, and I had no idea who they were. I needed one more active line to hit MB, which is the next rank up, so I went to the girl who had came to the party I threw to beg her to join me. Then I found out from her that O was trying to get her to join under her and had told her not to hang out with me because I didn't care about her and that I only cared about the money. Wait a minute. Okay, so this woman O on your team is also kind of after this one girl that came to the party, right? So both of you in Monat are after this one recruit. And O is telling her, no, 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 don't listen to this girl over here. She just wants you for the money. Okay, O, what are you in it for? Don't act like this is a selfless service. You're in it for the money too. Delusional. That was true to an extent, I must admit that you were in it for the money, but I hadn't spoken to her in so many years and I was on a Monat high. I believed that everyone needed this in their life and I spared no relationship. I was desperate to hit the next rank because I wanted more recognition, so naturally hearing this upset me. I then messaged the girl again and I signed her up by giving her an incentive to join me. I know that's against compliance, but we were told that if we had extra product, we could use it to sign up new VIPs or market partners. So essentially saying like, come and join my team and I'll give you some free product in return. So that sounds like what you did and it worked. She signed up on your team. O then called me and started calling me names and telling me that I will never fit in with any of the girls because I was overweight and not a Monate image girl, whatever that means. My upline knew that I joined because I lacked confidence, community, and I needed to repay debt, and I really wanted to be a part of something I thought was bigger than myself. I expressed my feelings to my upline about what O had said. My upline called O and was told that I was the problem and that I had called her a bitch, that I was crazy and a drug addict. What? I never said those words, but this created drama. O started telling other market partners that I was jealous and had made up a few rumors about me. Oh my gosh, the cattiness is off the charts. Are we still in high school? It feels like it. That led me to tell my upline and my director at the time that I was gonna quit. My upline then told me before I made that decision that she wanted to speak with me. She gave me an invitation to come see her, but she lived 45 minutes away from me. I drove the 45 minutes anyways because I didn't want to lose the sense of community that I had found. We met at a Starbucks and she tore me down. She began telling me that I was not doing enough as an upcoming leader, that I wasn't pushing hard enough to meet new people. She then went on to explain that I should have let O sign up the new girl because O had been in the business longer and was more experienced. She then proceeded to tell me that if I wanted to have her and my director upline at future Meet Monate parties, that I needed to sign on 3 more market partners before they would hang out with me again. What? Oh my gosh. So now she's basically saying, like, if you want to be associated with me, if you want me to come to your Monate events in the future, you need to recruit more people, work harder. What on earth? Essentially telling you that you need to earn her support. It's not just given to you. You need to prove yourself to her if she's going to be your friend or show up and support you in this business, right? These are full-grown adults, by the way. Let's just remind you of that, okay? Full-grown adults, not high schoolers anymore. I went against my gut feeling and I stayed because I was making some money on my bonus checks that I needed, but I unfriended my upline on all of my social media apps. I then stopped working due to being upset with the situation, so I didn't try for the month. I quickly fell from the rank of AMB down to MP, which is the bottom rank in the company. I then got a phone call from a random number on the last day of the month and I didn't answer. It was followed by a text message that said, "Hey, it's M. I see that you're only 32 GV away from hitting MMP this month. Do you think you could make a purchase so that you can hit your rank?" I was mortified that she used somebody else's phone to ask if I could purchase products to hit my rank because she wanted to hit hers. When I was ranking, she hit MMB, which meant that I was making her money. But when I was not hitting my rank, she would not hit MMB because I was the second MMP leg that she needed to hit. I wanted to hit my rank too, but my husband told me it was not worth it. I did not purchase any products to hit MMP. So for anybody listening, don't get lost in the weeds on these terms. Basically what happened is the upline called and said, "Hey, I see that you're not hitting your quota for the month. Do you think you could just place an order and buy something so that I can hit my rank too?" This is a strategy called bonus buying or rank buying, where you literally spend your own money to hit your goals so that you can achieve certain ranks and get certain payouts. It is against Monate's policy. You're not allowed to be doing this, but everybody pretty much does because it's a really convenient loophole in the system, right? If you're that close to hitting your rank, it's so easy. Just place an order. But sometimes they're in a pickle where it's not you that has to place the order, it's your downline that has to place the order. So you got to do some convincing. You got to call them up. You got to be like, "Hey, by the way, do you think you could place that order?" And in some cases, I have even seen examples of people being like, "Hey, you placed the order under your name, but I understand you don't want to spend that money. I'll Venmo you. But the order has to be on your account in order for it to count towards the group goal so that I can hit my rank. Okay, so on the down low, go ahead and buy a Rejuvenique oil and I'll send you a payment for it." Extremely shady, super unethical, but it happens every single month in this company specifically. And this situation is proof enough that everyone is stacked on top of each other. Everyone is dependent on everyone else for their income. How terrifying of a situation that must be, because your success is not up to you. You're relying on other people. You're at the mercy of somebody agreeing to make an order in order for you to hit your rank. What a disgusting and shady business to be a part of. I'm sorry. Now, I'm not sorry. Months went by and I hadn't worked my business at all. Then one day I caught the oh so grand Monate vision again after watching them go on their passport trip. This is like an incentive trip that you can earn in Monate. They go to all kinds of tropical locations, Mexico, whatever. I got FOMO and I started working hard. And by working hard, I mean cold messaging people like it was no one's business and enrolling people even on thin circumstances, such as paying for a part of their enrollment or giving them free product. Once again, this is what I was told to do because because people don't make their money ethically in Mon 8. I hit the first leadership rank of MMB and I was immediately added into the leader group chats. I was given an expensive necklace from my upline and I was invited to join leadership only lunches. Hitting MMB was almost like a cult induction that I should have seen the red flags. They were literally everywhere. Then I got pregnant. I told my upline that I would be stepping away from my business to focus on my family. I was shamed by my upline, by our first level director and our director's leaders for leaving the group chats to focus on my baby. The group chat I was in had messages all day, every day. It was exhausting, and if you didn't respond, you were labeled as lazy and not serious about your business. As a first-time mom, you do not want any of that extra stress in your life postpartum. Completely agree, and good for you for recognizing that and putting a boundary on that for yourself. Great job. Even if it came at the expense of people talking bad about you and being labeled as lazy or whatever, but that is what was the best for you in that time. I'm proud of you for recognizing that and for prioritizing that for your own well-being. I was called a quitter, weak, and small-minded. Another year went by and I got a message from both the director and my previous upline who both publicly shamed me in a group chat and on a Zoom call, but now they were asking if I wanted to join their new venture, Olive Tree People, and that was an easy no for me. Yes, Mon 8 feels like it's really in its final years, in my opinion, and people are recognizing that and they are jumping ship and they are going to mostly Olive Tree People, it seems like. I know you have so many horror stories, but I wanted to share this with you because since I found your channel, I realized how brainwashed I was by Mon 8. I used to sing the Mon 8 song on my way home from my 9 to 5 almost every day. What the F? I had spent money on Monations tickets that I never even attended. I went to local events and acted like a know-it-all Mon 8 influencer on Instagram. I lost respect for my family members during my time with Mon 8, and I am so embarrassed that I was a part of that scam. Thankfully, from this experience, I walked away putting confidence into myself and not into a company, learning to redo life and making real friends after an MLM and to never trust an MLM again. Yours truly, an ex-Mon 8 rep. Love it so much. I love getting stories from people who were in MLMs themselves. And the reason that I chose this for this video is this is probably one of the best examples I've seen of the cattiness of Mon 8 specifically, okay? It does happen in lots of different companies, but the demographic of people that this company targets is usually young women that are attractive, that are ambitious, that are outspoken, that are kind of like wannabe influencers, and they give you that whole like mean girl from high school type vibe. And absolutely not saying every single person in Mon 8 is like that, but the big teams that I've seen, and I'm not including it in this screenshot, but the writer of this email did tell me exactly who her upline was. And I know, I'm like, I can absolutely see how all the dynamics you're outlining in this story are 100% true for that upline and the culture of her teams. I have seen it with my own eyes on social media too. That person has made several appearances in my MLM Top Fails videos. So for me, I'm like, yep, that checks out. What I've seen happen on that team in public lines up pretty well to what you're claiming happened on that team in private. It's just nasty. They treat each other so terribly and they act like it's some like exclusive club that you have to earn your way into. And all this stuff you're detailing about like them getting mad that you recruited that person instead of this girl recruiting that person. And you have to earn your right to be around me by recruiting more people. And the group chats and the berating of you in the group chats when you're not working hard, like it all makes perfect sense to me, especially knowing who your upline was. So for that reason, I felt like this was an extremely valuable story to share in this format to show people like this really does happen in these companies. Not every company, not every team, but this is the risk you run joining MLMs is you are sort of like indoctrinated into this group of women usually that will stop at nothing to get what they want and they will walk all over you if that's what it takes. Very sorry this happened to you. I hope that you and your baby are doing well these days, and I'm so grateful that you are not a part of Mon 8 anymore and that you did not take up that offer to join Olive Tree People. Could you even imagine? Thank you for writing in your story. And the 10th and final story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is Rich. I've been a subscriber and a self-proclaimed member of the Zeke and Cooper fan club for a while now. Recently I had a somewhat unique and extremely uncomfortable experience with an MLM hunt and I felt I absolutely needed to share it with you and your viewers. You can share my name, but for the privacy of the other people in my story, I have changed their names. I hope my story isn't too long, but I promise you that it's going to be juicy. Trigger warning for drugs, religious cult, suicide attempt, eating disorders, and depression. A little backstory about my experience with MLMs. I'm a first-generation Korean American. My parents immigrated to the US from South Korea, my dad in 1977 and my mom in 1988. They came to New York after they married in 1988, where they found a Korean community at a church. My mom wasn't that religious, but my dad was, so my mom attended just to keep him happy. And then I was born. For as long as I could remember, we always had Amway products everywhere in our tiny one-bedroom apartment, from laundry detergent to snacks to multivitamins to rust remover, you name it. If they needed anything, they would buy it from MLM Huns and Hun bands. And Huns bands? Oh, okay. Okay. Hunsbins, like husbands. I get it. They would buy it from MLM Huns and Hunsbins from church. I'm only speculating, but I think they did that because of the language barrier. Since the MLMers in church were Korean, it was easier for them to get exactly what they needed. As I grew older, I started telling my parents to stop buying these things from the church because they were extremely overpriced. Thankfully, they listened and they never got involved with Amway. That's great. When I was 16, my church started pushing an entrepreneurship seminar after our youth worship service. However, as a somewhat precocious teenager, I immediately suspected that I was being groomed to become an MLM Hun or an MLM bro. I voiced my concerns to my fellow youth group members, but the deacon and youth group pastor basically told me that I'm a kid and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Of course, both of them were under the head pastor's downline, and I was convinced that they were holding these seminars to make it easier to recruit the entire youth group in their downline in the future. I think that's a fair assumption. Truth is truly stranger than fiction. However, the fact that my church was an MLM cult wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It was that when I confided in my youth group pastor about my struggles with drugs and my sexual orientation, he thought it would be a good idea to turn it into the following week's sermon and out me in front of the entire youth group. I remember how absolutely mortified I was. That's next level disrespectful, and I am so sorry he did that to you. The following day, I nearly overdosed on Xanax. I woke up in the hospital and was put on suicide watch. I won't lie, I wanted to jump out of the window. I was so afraid of what my parents would say to me about being gay. I was dreading that conversation. Against all odds, I made a full recovery, and I won't go into detail since my recovery and rehabilitation is a whole other story, but this whole experience made me super anti-MLM and a staunch atheist. I moved on with my life. I got clean, I went to college, graduated cum laude, and then started my career in software engineering. And I think my peers didn't try to recruit me into MLMs because I was making very good money, and therefore not a good candidate for a get-rich-quick scheme. And then the pandemic happened. I was suddenly laid off and I needed a job. Cue the MLM Huns. But I ignored every Hey Hun message I got because I had enough savings to last me for the whole year. And since there were no jobs to apply for given the circumstances, I started streaming myself singing karaoke online. I swear this is relevant. One thing led to another, and I got casted for American Idol, and I got several opportunities to perform at places like the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York City, and last year, I decided to leave the software engineering field to pursue my musical interests full time. My income was limited, and my husband Eric became the main breadwinner. What a cool backstory, honestly, like, oh, no big deal, like I got cast for American Idol. And for any viewers out there, I did fact check this is 100% true. During this time, I took a risk and I made the big move to Dallas, Texas, and I started performing in public once the pandemic restrictions were lifted and I started working on my own music. This opened up more opportunities for me, but the problem with Dallas is that it is rife with MLM Huns. There's actually a pink Cadillac in my condo complex, and yes, this woman tried to recruit me as soon as I closed on my home and moved in. I'm somewhat of a no-nonsense type person, so I cut her off immediately and I made it clear that I was not interested, to which she said that I was very rude and making an enemy out of the wrong people. Okay, all right. Even the vocal coach I had found was involved in an MLM and tried to sell me on doTERRA. She would keep telling me that peppermint oil would help me with my frequent sinus infections. Eye roll. But my real MLM nightmare had not yet started. Earlier this year, I was approached by a local DJ to try out for a karaoke contest in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The grand prize was $5,000 cash, no strings attached, quote unquote. He told me that I probably had a very good chance at winning the grand prize, so I signed up. In retrospect, I should have read the terms and conditions of the contest, but surely this karaoke contest had nothing to do with an MLM, right? Right? Nope. While the local DJ who had reached out to me to participate had no idea about this, the lady who was organizing the contest was an MLM Hun. We'll call her May. And May had a lot of nefarious plans, so much for no strings attached. To my horror, I discovered that the terms and conditions had a clause stating that the finalists who made it to the top 16 may have to perform at events throughout Texas, which turned out to be all MLM events. Mary Kay, Modern Nature, Monate, same thing. New Skin, Plexus, Lavelle, etc., etc. It was a nightmare. I couldn't back out either because I was afraid that I would get sued for breach of contract. Before I knew it, I was on an MLM world tour, so my friends jokingly called it. During this time, I was so overwhelmed and extremely depressed and starting to drink a lot. I was performing at least 4 nights a week, completely unpaid, and I had to pay for my own travel, which cost at least $750 a month, which Eric was helping me with because I didn't have a steady income. I think the worst part was that I was forced to mingle with MLM huns who were around my mother's age. May would introduce me as a celebrity guest, which made me super uncomfortable because I was not and am still not a celebrity. But she would say things like former American Idol finalist, even though I kept correcting her, to which she would say to me, you have to make yourself seem bigger than you really are if you want to succeed in this industry. The MLM industry or the music industry? I was so confused by her logic. Just tell the truth. I'm a local musician. Just say that. And learning that she was charging tens of thousands of dollars per event made me so mad because I was going into debt to perform at her events. I was going into debt even though I was not in her downline. The whole thing was driving me crazy. It was like a really bad fever dream. I can't even believe this is a situation you found yourself in, right? What an odd scenario. You signed up for a karaoke contest. You did well in said karaoke contest, which now means that you are legally obligated based on this contract you signed to perform at MLM events all across the city. Like, who would have even thought this was a possibility of something you would find yourself doing one day? And her saying the statement of like, you have to make yourself seem bigger than you really are if you want to succeed in the industry. That is so ironic because I guess that does apply to the music industry, but it heavily applies to the MLM industry. That's kind of one of the biggest job duties you complete as an MLM rep is making yourself seem really important and making people think that you have it all figured out and that you're making a ton of money because that's the way you recruit people. So you have to be deceptive, you have to lie, you have to overinflate certain claims to make people think that you are more legit than you are. So given that she is an MLM hun who also runs karaoke contests, right? Like this kind of applies to both of her worlds. Like just fake it till you make it. That's so big in show business. Whenever I had objections due to the amount of events I had to perform at, she would say things like, well, you gotta hustle if you want to get noticed, and we're doing you a huge favor by giving you these opportunities, so be grateful. And if it weren't for us, you'd be singing in the back of a karaoke bar. And I guess she was right, and so I stayed. In retrospect, I can't help but notice her hunness is so obvious in everything she said to me to keep me in. Here he is again. And then I got approached to participate in another karaoke contest by a guy named Bob, not his real name. Bob is a well-known local karaoke host who was elected to be in charge of hosting one of the biggest unaired singing contests in Texas, and he really wanted me to be a part of the state team and thought that I would have an excellent chance at qualifying for nationals. Since his organization was a non-profit with zero association with MLMs, I agreed to participate and I thanked him for the opportunity, much to May's ire. May found out that I had joined this other contest and things got really complicated. I wasn't breaching her contract, but she felt that because I was involved in another contest, I was no longer serious about her contest. From then on, I was no longer asked to perform at her MLM events, which was a huge relief, but I wasn't off the hook just like that. She started spreading lies about me and telling people that I was trying to derail her contest. She even went down my followers list on Instagram and personally messaged people to unfollow me. Thankfully, her efforts to hurt my reputation were largely unsuccessful. Meanwhile, I went to the state finale for Bob's contest and I placed 4th out of the over 1,200 contestants across Texas. That's when May started posting snarky comments on nearly every one of my Facebook posts, and her boyfriend would do the same thing. She was giving high school bully, so I just ignored her. And then she started DMing me to convince me to buy her Plexus drinks to help me lose weight so that I would look sexier for the grand finale. As someone who was struggling with weight and eating disorders during childhood, I won't lie, I was mildly offended, but I just calmly responded with, I'll just stick to the gym. Thank you, though. I stopped talking to May and her boyfriend, but because I wanted to stay professional, I bit the bullet and I stayed in her contest and remained cordial until the grand finale. Of course, it didn't surprise me that I didn't win, despite being voted most likely to win by the audience. The grand finale was rife with MLM huns trying to recruit people into their schemes. It was so awkward. I was so happy to leave when the whole thing was over. After her contest was over, things started coming out of the woodwork. The karaoke community in Dallas is very very tight, and because May had alienated so many people in that community, word got out very quickly about how May had done some pretty horrible things, including leaving untrue and unfavorable reviews of the venues that refused to host her contests, and demanding several vendors to provide free products and services as well. And several contestants said that May had approached them and tried to recruit them into her downline. The funniest thing, though, is when May announced that she would do season 2 next year on the Dallas Karaoke Community Group, the news was met with a lot of negative comments. The post was quickly taken down and May was banned from the group. A couple weeks later, May and her boyfriend had the audacity to reach out to me to see if I'd be interested in recording a debut album. They told me that they started a management and record label company and wanted me to be the first artist on their roster, like it was some kind of privilege. I jokingly asked if I would be forced to perform at another MLM event, and I was met with an awkward silence. I blocked her on all of my social media, which led her boyfriend texting me that I'm an ungrateful... That's not a funny word. I am an ungrateful F-word derogatory term, and that I would never make it in the music industry. I blocked him too. I was so over it, and I really didn't care if they went around saying negative things about me anymore. Nobody significant was going to believe them anyway. This was a bridge I was so happy to burn. The MLM nightmare was finally over, and I learned a lesson to read everything that you sign. The good news is that in a couple of weeks, I'll be performing in Las Vegas at a non-MLM event where Eric and a bunch of my friends will be flying in to support me. I never thought that I'd be living an MLM horror story, considering I grew up in an MLM religious cult, but here I am. This is one of the more twisty-turny stories I've ever read. Who would have thought that signing up for a karaoke contest would get you like heavily involved with this MLM woman and her MLM world tour, as you called it? I love this because I truly feel like everybody has some kind of experience with an MLM in some way, even the smallest ways. You don't have to sign up for one to be heavily impacted by one, obviously. And this story is such a great reminder of that. And I love that you can have like an air of humor about it, right? It's a very unfortunate situation that cost you a lot of time and money and annoyance. Like, this was very irritating to have to deal with, but you have to admit, it's a funny story. It really is. Who would have thought that you would have gotten roped into something like that? I just love that. It's so funny to me. Sorry it happened, but also you have a really great story to tell. Thank you for sending this one in. And with that, we have survived 10 tremendous horror stories in this video. What a fun video to film. I had a blast doing it. I have been sitting filming for 7 hours, you guys. 7 hours. I started at 10 a.m. It's now 5 p.m. I'm late to go pick up my toddler from preschool. At one point in this video, in story number 10, my SD card got completely full. I started with an empty card and I filled it up with raw footage. I had to go export it and come back with a clean SD card. I've never done that in a video in my entire 4 years of YouTube so far. I have never filled an SD card with one video worth of footage, which tells me this is probably going to be the longest video I've ever posted on my channel. This is certainly the longest I've ever filmed continuously. But I had a blast because these stories were more than entertaining. I hope that you love them too. And what's pretty cool about this is when I was scrubbing through my inbox, I had the hardest time narrowing it down to 10. I had a folder of I think 24 stories that I was like, these would be perfect for the top 10 video. And from there, I agonized over this for many hours, rereading them, trying to come up with the best possible compilation of stories. But what that tells you is that I've got at least 14 more stories that could have made it into this video. And I think like 50 stories beyond that that would definitely make a video too. I still have so much content for future horror stories videos. I'm more than happy to continue with these if you are happy to continue watching them. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this one down below. There was so much to talk about in this video. Thanks for sticking through that with me. Thank you to the writers of these stories. And before you go, don't forget to check out the description box below. If you click that link, you can get a 7-day free trial plus 25% off Paired Premium. Thanks again to the Paired app for sponsoring today's video. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.